Sul everybody, and welcome back to the Wheel of Wishes. We have Jason.
Hello, I'm here.
So,
Kind
for
of.
some reason, Norbus is a green square today in his portrait. I don't know why. Hopefully, that's
I'm,
not a
tell- I'm,
problem.
I'm telling you, it's like a portrait of Dorian Gray thing.
Portrait of
He
Dorian
was
Green
turned into a green square, and
is turned into
so
a
it's
green
just
screen. Oh, his,
yeah.
his, his, his portrait here showed up now, finally.
Hmm.
So,
You ever have that in real life where you sort of like wake up, you look in the mirror, you're not there, you have to go back to bed, and then when you wake up again, then you're there. That
honestly, that's me
might have been a
whenever I
dream
wake
I
up early
had.
in the morning.
Yeah.
He's like, I wake up, I don't
There's,
exist, I go back to bed.
there's. Well, I mean, like that's literally true for me. I feel because I feel like and I'm given to understand maybe this is not normal. I feel like when I'm like dreaming, I like one of the reasons I have trouble lucid dreaming is I don't really have an ego. In like I experience ego death when I'm dreaming, right? And so there isn't a me to be awake. And sometimes then when you're waking up, it's like it has you know concept of self has not successfully booted up. Please restart.
I mean, this morning I had a dream about a Star Trek movie that opened with the Star Wars main theme, so there's that.
Well, was that like the for May the 4th on Tumblr? I saw someone
oh,
did.
oh my god, that's
Uh,
right. I didn't even consider that I had it in the evening of May 4th.
well, because I saw yesterday someone had done the Space the Final Frontier monologue, but in the style of the Star Wars crawl,
I have not
as
seen that.
just to troll people.
No, I just want you to imagine just the Starship Enterprise like flying towards the screen slowly, just. I think even in the dream, I was like, "This is wrong." Da,
Right.
da, da,
No,
da,
yeah.
da, 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 da. All right, we need a
Oh God,
guitar.
I feel like you could do a really good like what's it called? Like, you know, not like a remix, but like I feel like you could blend that with the main theme from the Abrams Star Trek movies really well. I feel like it has a similar like I mean we know J.J. Abrams was a huge Star Wars nerd and then got given Star Trek and that's why you know films are like that. But I feel like hey I actually enjoy the first and third of them. The Into Darkness was not Into Darkness was missing a third act, but besides that, anyway. But yeah, the music I feel I think it's just the main theme, or it might have been the one that's called like "Enterprising Young Men" because it was Michael Giacchino, so all the music has pundits. Would go really well with that music from Star Wars.
The
I
keyboard.
feel like the acoustics on these guitars
Yeah,
would
which
not.
guitar do we want?
I kind of like the one that's like it's like the red hollow, like the red outline with like an eyebrow. I don't know, it's the far right one. That one, yeah.
Okay, yeah, Sharkate. Let's get rid of these other two, and let's get a keyboard. We don't want an entire grand piano today.
Save that for tomorrow.
Yeah, we're gonna stick these all in our inventory. The real question is, which one do we start with? Well, the first thing we're gonna do is go to bed,
Mood.
but right? We've all been there.
Yeah.
Quick scan for any pink diamonds. More. We have attempted home invaders again.
I feel like our interior decorating should be sufficient home invader deterrent,
You'd think
right?
that.
Like they come in and they're just kind of. It's like sort of the equivalent of like I'm thinking of the like one panel comic that it's the aliens have landed and they see like Jesus being crucified or whatever, and they're like, you know what we need to do is we need to get out of here right now, right?
I think you know that one comic with the alien getting caught by FBI guy or whatever. Going, what's your name, little man? And he like looks at the streets and it's like Johnson and some other like actual name is a street name, and it's just like I can't read.
What was the one I saw yesterday that it was they were like interrogating an alien. They're like, why do you keep abducting and probing our our people? And it's the alien holds up like a picture of like the Voyager disc. It's like, you sent us unsolicited nudes, a mixtape, and directions to your home.
Oh my god, Shmoopy's clipping through the guitar.
Clipping through the guitar sounds like a album name to me.
Sure, that could be his first album. I don't think we
Like,
sell albums, but
or a band name, right? I don't know. Like,
yeah. I remember back in high school.
maybe like glitchcore or whatever type music.
Sorry, no,
probably.
not high school. Back in middle school, me and my friends at the time decided we wanted to make a band, and of course none of us knew how to play any instruments, so it was all entirely hypothetical. But we called it Brain Dip.
I think that's a real band.
Is it?
Or it's like that is like the name of something, right? It's maybe not a band. Like I feel like that's the name of some. Like that is an actual trademark, or but like
I mean, I'm googling it.
That sounds like an actual thing.
I'm googling it, and it's just like Halloween spooky.
I don't.
Recipes.
Maybe I'm thinking of something like similar. I don't know. That sounds very.
But I remember, like with the conceptualization stage, it was basically just we're trying to come up with what type of music is Brain Dip going to be, and it's just different genres break down by percentage. And it's like in hindsight, I don't think that's how music composition works.
I mean, it depends, right? I don't know. I like the Loading Ready Run did a crap shot that they occasionally will do these ones where they've like it's. They've even said like Vikings like, look, we'll have like a list of like funny things we want to like fit into a thing, and so it will wind up being like some context where we're allowed to like just list them off, and so it's like two people suggesting fake music genres to each other.
I mean, sure, yeah, it's like it's one thing. It's just if it's a list of genres you want to like incorporate, but percentages and then debating on like, do we want 5% more of this?
Well, I feel like that's like probably. I mean, like at this point, whether you want to actually you.
Can you hear my next door room neighbor's like screamo death metal?
No.
Okay, that's good because he's playing screamo death metal, and I can hear it.
Well, I do not hear it. No.
Good. It would be very awkward if that picked up on mic.
But I'm just thinking of like, I guess there is a ethical or philosophical debate on whether it would count as music. But I feel like theoretically, you probably we have, AI machine learning thing where theoretically you could be like, give me something that is this percent this and this percent this, and it would spit something out.
I mean, sure, but it was like 2007.
Yeah, but I feel like that's almost my point. Is like I do feel like the way, because people think AI is capable of more than it actually is, and it's based on like a child's understanding of how they thought technology worked.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the only thing we ever really came up with was the concept for album art,
Well,
which is
that's
just, which is, it's what you would expect. It is a brain with a tortilla chip. Gonna just hear from the next room over.
But I'm just picturing again, sort of like thinking of like why people think that's how this technology should work, even though it doesn't. And I'm just picturing like Star Trek, right? Like where they'll be in like the holodeck, and they'll be like, recreate the scene now, increase lighting by 12%. Now, and like you can just imagine them being like,
then there's the
computer.
I'm thinking specifically of that scene, the one with we've all been in this room before.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the directions that they give for like produce a chair, and it's like
right, doesn't that? But like think, and that's exactly how these people have kind of tried to set up interaction with like generative AI, and it doesn't actually work because again, the computer doesn't know what it's doing. They're trying to reverse engineer a technology from the idea of it, and the only time that's really remotely worked was cell phones, and even then it took like 50 years to get anywhere close to what the original thing that they saw on Star Trek was. Like, we should do that.
The thing I specifically liked about that scene was when they changed the material from wood to metal, I think it was, and like the shape of it completely changed.
Well, that's more on par with like the modern AI stuff, right? Like the complaint of like, here's why this can't even work, even if we like the hiring person who did hire, like, fine, I'll hire some people who are using AI. They're like, please just change this one detail of this thing, and they couldn't fucking do it. Right? They like were incapable of not just generating a vaguely similar thing that had the new thing, but also changed a bunch of it. They couldn't just change one detail. Make this chair metal. Okay, no, that's not. You did not make that chair metal. You have replaced that chair with a completely different chair made of metal. I wanted the initial chair, that shape, but metal. Sorry, I don't understand. Okay, well then that's useless, right? Like,
yeah. I like when an AI will be like, "Oops!" When you call an AI up for doing something wrong, like, "Oops! It seems like I made a mistake," and then proceed to do the exact same thing wrong.
well, again, kids. I like my sort of position on this is, you know what? Maybe it is intelligent. It's not conscious, and there's actually a distinction between those two things that most people don't think about and don't realize that like the problem that they're trying to address is a different one than what's actually going on. Right? Like it is repeating patterns and it's doing that and it knows that the correct like it does know in a sense the correct response to making a mistake is to apologize, but
It's
it
like
can't conceptualize the mistake
yeah.
because it's not actually thinking. It's just
It's like like the Chinese room.
yeah, yeah. My sort of feeling is like if it ever, I don't know. I
God, it
don't.
is so jarring to just have all this conversation and just the screamo death metal in the background. I'm so sorry. It's just
It's like it feels like a scene from a movie, right? Of like people trying to like have like a fairly serious like or humorous like but like not like some kind of high concept conversation, but just like there's just this like in the background they're very totally dissonant. Uh, but it's like my sort of like thinking of it is that with this stuff it's like, well, it doesn't create art, it just steals from other people. It's like that's all true, but like this is, you're talking about it as though it is an entity apart from the person who is using it as opposed to a tool, and that's how a lot of people who are trying to use it as a tool are trying to think. They're thinking of it as a separate entity, whereas if you just think of it as like a really fancy pencil and you actually do have to put in, because like you'll hear AI prompters be like, actually it's really hard to figure out how to, it's like, like, okay, like, yeah, but like you're sort of like you're talking past the actual issue when you're complaining about the difficulty, because it's actually like we're not complaining about that, we're complaining about the ethics of the stolen art stuff, right? And then it gets
yeah.
so there's like different issues that don't, like, they're both like, there actually are like legitimate sort of like complaints in places, but like it's sort of like you've already sort of like transgressed in this other way that's not relevant to that. Anyway, the way I think about it is like an artist, right? An artist will use a pencil, right?
Yeah.
And if they're really good at it, they will like the pencil is part of their body, right? They don't think about that as like a tool of their hand. They're moving. They're that's how it. There is sort of that continuity between the artist and the tool that they're using to do it. And so, in that way, you could argue, well, the pencil is intelligent in that it is performing work
For you,
in
the
right,
first
like it
member
is,
of
yeah.
the DK crew.
Well, like it's converting, right? It's converting your kinetic motion that is you're creating with your conscious, intelligent mind into pressure that has been focused mechanically through like a sharpened thing into lines, and so it is performing this actually very complex sort of like process of translating the thing that you have in your head and you're moving your muscles and thinking and trying to draw onto the page, and then it is successfully generated that image. And in a way, I think that there's a way that AI, if used properly, kind of can focus on like I have an idea in my head, and I am now understanding that this intelligence is not a separate entity from me. It is an augmentation of my own sort of like thoughts that I'm using to conceptualize and visualize and focus what I have into a visual image. And expecting it to do it without your thinking and thinking it's just going to do it itself without effort from the generator, the artist, the prompter, or whatever, is how you get all this nonsense. Because it's like that's not like it is not a genie. It's not a genie. It's a really overly complicated like paintbrush that can only paint things that you've shown it, and then because that's like the thing of like it's like, oh, it's stolen because they fed it all this stuff. It's like, yes, it's true. I am not arguing that the way that these models have been trained is in any way ethical or that isn't a problem. But to my mind, it is like, well, but like an artist has like watched a bunch of stuff and then they still like they draw inspiration from what they've seen. That's not actually like, it's just that we sort of can do it at a much slower pace than a computer can, and we have an understanding of it. But again, you have that understanding, and if you wanted to actually use AI effectively, I feel like you do kind of need to have like the someone has to have the understanding, and it's not going to be the computer, right?
I'm just thinking of. I just was thinking of this one line from Warcraft 3. If you click on the Dwarven Rifleman unit enough times, it just says, "Guns don't kill people. I do."
I mean, like it's kind like it is. It's
Not
sort of the same thing,
wrong.
right? Again, like yes, but like the purpose of the gun is to allow it to be much easier for you to do
Yes.
it in the same way. Like, and that's the same. It's like technology. God, I forget. I want to say technology etymologically, like originally does go back to sort of like there was a sense that it is sort of an extension of the like it means hand, doesn't it? Like it is literally like a. And that's
I
just
don't
kind of
know.
like me.
Bold of you to assume I've ever known anything.
Well, knowing
It's half the
anything,
battle.
maybe not, but true belief. Did you see they found a alleged account of Plato's death at like from the stuff they recovered from like Mount Vesuvius recently?
Nope.
Okay, so it was like he was critiquing the music playing skill of the slave girl who was attending his bedside as he died. I'm just like, yeah, that like we don't know if this is like this. It corroborates some like previous accounts we've had of stuff, but like that sounds like him. Yeah. Okay. No technology. From techna meaning craft or art. From Proto Indo-European meaning to create or produce.
I'm sorry, I just hear the word craft for some reason. My brain just goes, just like Minecraft. I love how we clearly bring two different energies to the table here.
Yes.
Like you're the one with all this. You have all this like knowledge and insight, and I'm just like Minecraft.
I mean, I think it's two slightly different flavors of autism. Um, no, what's the? I'm imagining like the. I feel like I've seen it, on occasion, right? You just like I've definitely seen it with like Star Wars, Star Trek, Stargate, Star Trek, and like craft, but in like, you know, Warcraft, Minecraft, Lovecraft, Starcraft,
It's like, wait a
just
minute.
like all the craft. I feel like that was a Tumblr post, but maybe I'm imagining that.
There's also one thing I noticed was that one thing that I thought of was there's um so Stargate is a TV show. Starscape is a video game. Fargate is a video game, and Farscape is a TV
Farscape.
show.
We've cracked it wide open.
Coincidence? I think not.
I mean, that's like that's the kind of thing that I feel like philosophers of old would like. Because like I'm just thinking about like again like speaking of like Plato and like how like they had a very like they didn't realize how language worked really, right? And so they would have all these like folk etymologies of like, well, these words mean this thing because they mean like this, and so they would like look at a pattern like that and be like, there is like a natural law of how these combinations generate different forms of media when you put them together or something, right? Like,
I
but
think
what is it
someone.
about the human brain that has a tendency towards naming these things in this capacity? Clearly, there's some underlying pattern. And I'm like, maybe not.
Oh, and
Or
they're
if
all
there is,
sci-fi.
like, yeah, well, that's, yeah.
I think someone should make a crossover between Stargate, Starscape, Fargate, and Farscape. Someone get on that.
Probably been done, right? Like, the internet
Those four, I don't
exists.
know, Starscape and Fargate are
Okay,
both
those, like,
very obscure.
I feel like if, yeah, I don't know.
Like, I think Starscape especially was like an indie game. And Fargate was going to be a competitor to Homeworld, except it came out like several years later than Homeworld and was completely outclassed.
That does happen, doesn't it?
Yeah. Make nectar basic, and then go to bed.
No, I'm just thinking of, like,
Whip your Java
bringing
dog.
the different, like, energies to it. I was in class. So for my seminar, we had to, like, make a zine, right? And so I was this is not what I would have chosen, but the group that I was in sort of converged on making like a parody of like a celebrity gossip magazine, which I did come up with a name for because they were talking like something like us weekly. Like, what about you momentarily? Um. Uh. Anyway, and so we were dividing up the work, and I was like, I'll do the like astrology page, right? Because they
That
always have like
tracks.
the um, and then we all sort of like met up and like had the stuff we made, and I okay, here's what I wrote, and it's like, oh, you put effort into this. We all just like they all put effort into it, but like in a different like it's like, wait a minute, is this like actually like based on like if you believed in astrology, would this like be an accurate like this is an application of the theory? Yes. Okay, well that's more work than you need to put into it, but thanks. It's interesting to me that I feel like among people,
Among?
no,
Round.
what is a different word for
Just say
when
amongst.
amongst people who, I think, very understandably don't believe in that stuff. There is
Yeah.
sort of an absence of understanding that there is like a coherent theory to it, right? Like I'm thinking of Jaden Animations did the video about she went to like a bunch of different fortune tellers and thought it was like weird that whenever they like all of them looked at her palm and like said she'd have the same number of kids or would marry at this age or whatever. It's like that's weird. How can they all like if this is all fake? How did they all like make that same prediction? And it's just like it's because they're all applying the same thing. You have the same hand. Anyone who is following like who knows how palmistry works and is applying it is going to look at that hand and give you the same prediction. That doesn't make it true, it just makes it consistent with their model, right? And like that's the kind of like angle that I think people are like, oh, they just like to make like you have to remember the same like the people who came up with this stuff are the people who would, if they were like born 100 years later, be scientists, right? It was just sort of before science split off from that kind of superstition. They understood like that was the working scientific scientific theory in the sense that we have. It's not really a term that they would have had, but like that was the working model of how the world worked, and it was approached with the same rigor that we approach physics with now. It's just that it turned out that it's not right, or at least not
Yeah.
right enough to rely on in the way that they were trying to, right?
Yeah. Just because it's consistent doesn't mean that.
Well, and again, my argument is I would say agnostic when it comes to anything of that sort, working or not. But there is kind of like they were like they thought it was something that existed exterior to themselves, but like it does work from like a psychological like it's like how tarot cards don't necessarily tell the future, but because of how like people project stuff onto the world around them, how they react to cards and stuff can like that is still like a way that people can sort of like work through their own feelings and make sense of things in a useful way by like externalizing their internal sort of stuff as this thing. And so like there's still a way that the system works. It's just it's not ontological to reality, and it's not like predictive of anything outside the brain that is trying to apply it. You know what I mean?
I mean, the human brain is very good at pattern recognition.
Right, and that's exactly sort of like my working theory right now, honestly, is essentially what all this stuff is actually very useful for. Is it's a very useful way of organizing like your mind palace, basically. Right? Of like there are these things, there are these sort of patterns that are fundamental. They don't work but like they're not they don't work. It is like a filing system, and if it doesn't matter that God, I don't know, roses aren't actually imbued with the energy of the planet Venus, which is will then help in love, or but like because you have made this sort of like color coded system, you can and it operates on kind of these very simple basics of like geometry and color that are universal. Like everything will have some relation probably to those things. They just then you can more easily sort of sort information and maybe if there are connections, notice them. But that doesn't mean that the like it's like how I remember reading, I think it was actually for like the Homestuck TV tropes or something. Or it was using like Homestuck was the, sort of the top example of it. But like the sort of like fractal character cast where you'll have like the main characters, and you have tons and tons of characters, but you can keep track of them all because there's actually like 5 main characters, and then each of those characters have another character, and then sort of like are related in a way that as long as you actually know the main characters and you know what those different
exiles, patron trolls.
Yeah. Right. And so it's the same and because if you know what those are and you know how they're related, you can keep track of all that large amount of information of all those characters much easier than if you didn't have some kind of sort of organizing pattern to them.
Yeah.
And that's what, like, the what I'm gonna say occult philosophy, because that's sort of like the probably broadest way of describing it, that is behind, you know, astrology and palm reading and all that stuff, is it is a pattern to just relate things to each other, so you can have information about different things and relate them. And then the problem is that you look at that and you think, I can make predictions about connections that I haven't actually observed that must be true because that's like, no, that's not how. No, don't do that. That's you're gonna not be correct if you do that. With that being said, I still love that apparently this is one of the things that it sounds fake, but it's apparently true. Is like it's possible the actual like origins of astrology are that like 3 kings in ancient Sumeria all died like on solar eclipses in a row, and the people were just like, that feels like that's worth checking out. I wonder if there's a connection there. And they're like, okay, we've decided clearly if there's a solar eclipse, it means that the king is going to die. So we're going to start having a substitute king on the days that we've calculated we're going to have solar eclipses. That's actually true, right? Like that's a real thing that happened.
Imagine being like, good news, you're king for the day. Bad news, we think it's because you're gonna die.
Yeah. So, and then and again, it's like sort of like, but like again, if you observe that pattern enough, even if it is a coincidence, it is kind of understandable to be like, I wonder what other like, and like if you look at ancient Sumerian, I forget the name of it, but like they have these tablets that are like, if this, you know, star is over here or whatever, it means this thing. And a number of them are things that they realistically would not have ever observed, just due to the fact that that's not how the stars would actually move. So they were trying to take kind of these individual like observations they did notice about these patterns, and were trying to create this coherent theory, and then, you know, that gets picked up by through the ages, and that's how you get people thinking that there's a connection there. And weirdly enough, if you look at like the British royal family, there are like a ton of them have died very close to eclipses or had some other major like birth or marriage, and it's like, again, it's a coincidence. It's if anything, realistically, maybe like you could think there's someone involved in planning the marriages or something that like is in on it, right? And it's like, no, like it's deliberately scheduling things, and then it's like, oh, it's not a natural pattern. It's because people think this pattern exists. They then pattern their behavior to it, and then that generates the pattern as appearing to actually be happening. Same thing as like
self-fulfilling prophecy.
Well, it's like I'm thinking of. I remember seeing a lot of people, again, because this is something that I don't necessarily believe in, but I am very sort of like autistic about learning about, right? So I keep up with some modern, you know, like astrology podcast stuff. And I was talking about like that Israel invaded Palestine, like right as Pluto was conjunct Mars at a specific point that is like relevant to the nation of Israel's birth chart. If like you draw a chart for, you know, when the country was founded or whatever, and so then that's very meaningful. It's like, or hear me out, especially because all this stuff does have like is, you know, connected back to Jewish mysticism. Someone in the Israeli government believed that because of that would be the opportune time to do it, and thus they did it because they predicted that would be when they should do it, and that's why then it looks like, oh, they did it at this time. That seems very meaningful. Yeah, because they did that on purpose, not because it's like, again, it's because they're sort of buying into it that it's just like, and I feel like there's a lot of stuff like that, right? Where it's like, oh, this is just like, it's, you know, it's real in the same way money is real. It's not. We made it up, and we could stop acting like it was real at any time, and it wouldn't actually, you know.
Almost done making grape juice. I think.
I want some grape juice.
Ask Norbus for some.
No, not that grape juice.
What? You don't want Norbus juice?
Hmm.
Coward. This portrait is still a green screen.
Yeah, that's weird.
Tis.
It's the same green as the, like... I actually have never paid a close enough attention to know for sure what it's like, health bar or whatever that's, like, by the... I'm
The
wondering
mood
if it's
meter.
actually... Yeah, it's the movie. It's like, I wonder if it's, like... That's, like, loaded in front of the, the picture or something.
I don't know, I think it just might be missing texture because his portrait down here initially didn't load either.
Yeah, but was it green? Like, is green how it indicates a missing texture? That seems a little
No,
weird
it
to
was
me.
transparent from here,
Yeah,
so I don't know.
so I feel like the green is not just that's a missing texture. If it was, I feel like we would actually just, like, see through to, like, the map behind it, right? Like, there's something there somehow.
I don't know.
Hmm.
Why are people doing school cheers outside of Norbus's house?
Oh,
They're drunk.
rude! Tifalur!
It's an old person, too.
Sabi matansu?
3 a.m.
What,
and an
old-
old man is doing a school mascot cheer in front of university cheer in front of the celebrity
I mean-
house.
I feel like that actually kind of scans, right? Like,
Does it?
they're drunk, they're angsty about being old, they miss their glory days of high school or university or whatever, so they're out at late at night doing the cheer, you know. And then they get off by the monster of the week, and then the opening credits start.
Sure.
I was picturing a very specific episode of, like, Torchwood, I think. Oh shit, the new season of Doctor Who starts this week.
Ooh. Also, I don't know how apparent that was, but that was supposed to be the Fringe
No,
theme.
the Fringe. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I got it.
I don't remember if I mentioned this, but like a while back I was watching... I don't even remember what I was watching, but every time the intro was coming up, I always mentally expected the Fringe theme to start playing.
It's a really good theme. I can't
is.
believe that J.J. Abrams woke up at, like, in the middle of the night with it in his head, sat down at his keyboard, recorded it, and then, like, showed it to Michael Giacchino, and that's what they used.
I still think it should have ended after season 3, though.
I personally, like, it did not need the like, mini-season at the end with the, yeah.
I also didn't really like season 4 resetting everything either. So.
I understand, like, I think that's fair, but I do think that if it had to end, and I think we've had this conversation before, the ending of season 4 specifically, of September showing up and saying, like, they're coming, and Walter being like, well, who's coming? And then cutting and never answering that would have been a very good way to be like, and the adventure continues, and there are still mysteries that aren't going to be solved, and that's okay, and this is going to, like, that's, like, seemed like a good button, like, they'd resolved the stuff with William Bell, they've done all that, and there is still this thing, like, hey, we never really got an answer about the Observers, now September's showing up, something is going to happen, we don't need to actually see it, cut there, I think would have been the correct call.
Wasn't there also an implication that the whole thing was a time loop as well? Like, at the end of season 5, they said that
they never
came back in time, but then like the kid also showed up in season 1, so
there was definitely a time loop, and they never really addressed the first people. Like, there are a number of plot threads that did just kind of like not get.
Oh yeah, then just
resolved.
Like, oh, we were the first people.
Yeah, it's like, okay, but so then when does that happen? Like that, and that like never seemed to occur. One of the things I keep... Okay, so, you know, people always think of it as a J.J. Abrams show. All right, it was. But so the sort of one of the showrunners for Fringe, J.H. Wyman, keeps making other shows that are kind of similar, but get canceled after 9 episodes. And it's getting ridiculous. And I keep like, particularly Debris, which was the most recent one. There was an episode where it really felt like you could just have the Fringe division show up, and it would make perfect sense. Like, this is like, you could have it be a reveal that this is in the same continuity, and you could continue some of that stuff, and like it had a similar enough philosophy, a similar enough sort of sense of everything, that I think that they could have gotten away with it, and it obviously didn't happen. And then of course in the last episode, which was again, he knows at this point, or his sort of like production crew knows at this point, okay, we're going to have this big show that is going to have all these mysteries that are supposed to last multiple seasons, and we're going to get canceled after 9 episodes. It keeps happening. And so they increasingly have the last episode of their initial order, right? That like 9th episode or so. Just like, it's like from, I don't know if we've talked about it, or if you've seen it, or you're familiar with Akiba Ranger, where they know they're getting canceled, so they deliberately are trying to start as many like plot threads and everything to sort of like, no, you can't cancel us. We haven't resolved any of this stuff yet, right? And so they introduced a character played by John Noble in the last episode of Debris, and honestly, it kind of made me more okay with them ending it, because first off, they really went out of their way to make this like incomprehensible, oh, we'll answer this all later, as though they were going to get renewed. But also, like, you had Walter Bishop show up on screen and then turn out to be a different person in a show that it really would have made sense Walter Bishop to just somehow show up, right? And that's like, oh, as soon as he spoke and he had a different accent, he had a different personality, he was a different character, I'm like, oh, I'm not interested anymore. Because you've bait and switched me here now, right? I thought we were actually, because there was another character who was sort of a similar archetype, and I talking with other people, I want to see him interact with Walter Bishop at like a mad science conference or whatever, right? Like, and so like there's just, it's just like, and then John Noble shows up to talk to this guy, and it's not Walter Bishop, and it's this like angry, like Welsh terrorist, and it's just like, oh, I don't care now. Okay, whatever. You're not gonna do the interesting thing.
Didn't Fringe show up in Warehouse 13 at one point?
I don't. Eureka. No. Alphas. Right. Alphas was in the same continuity as Warehouse 13 and Eureka.
Something.
Yeah. But no. Like, overall, I actually really enjoyed Debris. But like, it really felt like, it actually did feel like they made a good show, and then they got to the last episode of their sort of like the order, and we're like, oh crap, we have to do all this stuff, and it just kind of went off the rails. But it's like the ones before that were like, do you remember the Almost Human with Carl Urban?
I've heard of the name, but that's about it.
It was a buddy cop show set in like 2048. And it was fine. Again, it was one of those things where, it just like sort of ended before I think it could. It had good and bad episodes or whatever. Obviously, being a cop drama, it probably would have not aged terribly well, but it also would have been over by or like, I think he was also involved with like Alcatraz, right? All these shows that were like very much in the same vein as Lost and Fringe, but just were not given a chance.
I'm just thinking about how Fringe fans are called Cortexa fans, and I think that's funny.
It's so good.
Anyways, Normus almost got robbed again, except it wasn't even close again.
Yeah, I feel like, it's sort of like, well,
it's literally foolproof.
Yeah.
Anyway, I discovered, after some Googling, why we haven't met the challenge for make 400 batches of grapes into nectar. And it's because we were using regular grapes. We need to use some kind of specialty grapes. So none of that counted.
Naturally.
Thanks for walking all the way out here to learn a song, Jonas. I don't know why you felt the need to do that. And now he's mad because he's wet and standing in the rain, which was his own decision.
Holding an electric guitar.
Yeah, good idea.
This is how you get superpowers, right?
Jorb, you're Jesse.
All the powers of a guitar.
Well, I mean, like, obviously to be comedic, that would be the
Inhale some
answer.
experimental internet gas, quickly.
But like, I can picture it being like, you know, some kind of vibrational, like resulting in something closer to like vibes powers, right?
Yeah.
Just because like.
I just remembering the New Warriors.
Yeah.
I want to acknowledge that the vampire kid in that one, like this was like 2 or 3 years before the Morbius movie, before anyone really knew who Morbius was. But
Hey, wait, no,
well,
people knew
the
who Morbius was.
mainstream knew who
Okay.
Morbius was.
I don't know if the mainstream knows who Morbius is now.
Well, yeah, that's fair
To
enough.
be fair.
Okay, the memes.
I know what you mean. Okay, yeah, sure.
But I appreciate that the vampire teen of the New Warriors, he turned into a vampire because he got a blood transfusion from Morbius.
Yeah, no, I mean that works. Like, I Morbius is a fine comics character. It's just the movie was
Memed him into oblivion.
okay. It's I still the first Venom movie was actually quite good. I thought, like, not like but like.
Oh yeah, it's a rom-com, right? Between
if you watch it as a rom-com, it's
Eddie
like
Brock
it's quite
and
good.
Venom.
Yeah, no, it's good. The second one, and then Sony just clearly doubled down on like we want our own cinematic universe, and then like I haven't seen it. My understanding is Madam Web is awful. Morbius, I never bothered with. It's just like you've again like you have like they keep doing stupid capitalism decisions and then oopsing into something that's maybe tolerable. And then as soon as they get people interested, they're like, what if we made another stupid capitalism decision instead?
I still think it's incredibly funny that my understanding is that the Morbius bombed at the box office.
Yeah,
Everyone
and people made
started
fun of it.
hyping it up and talking about how much they love Morbius to try it as a meme.
They brought it back to
theaters,
theaters, and no,
and it bombed again.
Yep.
It's so funny.
I don't know. I will say experimental internet gas is not actually any more ridiculous than, like, if you go back to the Silver Age or whatever, right? Like, the hard water that fell on Jay Garrick or whatever, right? Like, it's the contemporary equivalent of that, basically.
It gives him all the powers of a smartphone.
I mean, that's the result is stupid because that's just like any cyborg should be able to have that, right? Like
having
that's
a phone,
I mean that's okay. That's literally just Cyborg then, right? Like Cyborg already can do that. I mean, this is Marvel as opposed to DC. Actually, does Marvel have like a sort of like there's so many one-to-one like this is obviously this company's version of the other one. I'm trying to think if they have like a Cyborg equivalent.
All I know is that I think there was the one character as well that was like her power was cheeseburger backpack. Just like some magic god-given backpack, and it's like, okay, why?
I mean,
why?
Again,
why?
I feel like that's actually unnecessarily critical of the the execution obviously was
just
poor.
The execution of it. It's just like that has nothing to do with anything else.
But like a hero that has like the bag of holding as their like thing.
Sure,
that's
that
fine.
Is fine. Yeah.
Sure. Right, I know.
But why do you need a magic backpack from God?
Well, where else are you gonna get it? I don't know. Like again, look at any
how
heroes.
About an actual wizard? There are those in this universe.
Yeah, but there are also gods in the universe, so it would also be weird to never use them.
I
right?
suppose.
Like,
I just don't think it fits in this specific
I don't
example.
remember, like, So I'm not familiar enough. Was it supposed to like be like Yahweh, or was it like one of the gods that is
I
like
don't know.
canonically
I
a
think it
thing
was.
in
As
Marvel,
best
right? Like we have
as
the Norse gods, obviously, like
as
um
best as I remember, it like the description was it's from God and no, not the one you're thinking of.
oh god.
And that
I
was
mean
the
maybe
only
they
description.
wanted to leave it and what was the name of this team again? I'm trying to remember.
The New
The
Warriors.
New Warriors.
But it was like there was already a team called the New
No,
Warriors, so this is like
I
the
know.
New Warriors.
Yes, that's why I paused and like are they reusing that name again? Okay, fine. No,
Zavani
2021, not the did you mean? And then like 12 different the new Warriors. The new Warriors. The new Warriors.
Shoutouts to Snowflake and Safe Space.
If Snowflake had been like a sidekick to Snowflame, that would have been phenomenal.
To Snow. Oh,
Right?
there's a character called Snowflame.
Snowflame, who gets his powers from doing cocaine.
Oh.
Right? No. Yeah.
Sure. All right.
Yeah, that's a real thing.
Great.
It was a different time. Yeah. Snowflame first appearance, the new Guardians. Oh, well, he's DC, so it wouldn't have been. But 1988.
Oh boy.
You had Snowflame?
I
thought
can't say
that was.
had.
I thought that was one of the ones that sort of like everyone was familiar with because of how silly it was.
No. Well, having a what's that one XKCD comic?
The Lucky 10,000
Yeah,
or
I like how I
whatever,
can
yeah.
just say that and you know what I mean.
I mean, it's that's one of those that gets shared around pretty commonly as a way of articulating it.
Lorgle. Borigog.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
what's the
here's what we
trail
need.
nature?
Different types of grape.
Wait, hang on. Was Snowflame in the new that Harley Quinn cartoon? Holy shit! I think he was. Okay, I may have to watch that at some point. Actually, then.
Vazorble, Shooby Vazorble.
Alright, we now have 20 Renoid grapes. Now we're gonna go plant these and grow 400 of these. I turn these
And
all
then
into
we
nectar.
okay, perfect. Okay.
It just says grapes in game. It doesn't tell you you need not the base game grapes. Nuh-uh-uh.
Ay.
Don't be ridiculous. It's like, so it's just like turn 400 homegrown bunches of grapes into nectar. Oh, there's an item called grapes that you can do this with? That doesn't count. Don't be ridiculous.
That's annoying as hell.
Oh, I just pulled up Discord for a second. Jason, have you seen episode 2 of The Amazing Digital Circus?
I have, yes.
Okay, cool. I have a meme I'm gonna send you while we're on this loading screen.
Sure.
There you go.
Ugh.
Seems about right.
I'm still, because people they said it's inspired by I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, and I'm still kind of waiting on okay, how true to that are they with Kane's intentions? Is he actually an idiot, or is this all sort of obfuscating intentional cruelty?
I mean, as far as I understand, he is the antagonist, so...
Yeah, but, you can easily have an antagonist who is an antagonist because they're an idiot, right? And, I guess, it's something about that... I guess if there are people here who have not seen the second episode, I don't want to spoil it. But something about the delivery of his explaining why
He did the
he
thing
did
he
what he did
did.
at the end makes me like, I'm not convinced
It
this is
seems
exactly that setup. Something else is
sus.
going on here. On the other hand, I super don't believe his explanation for the door in episode 1. Right? It's like, oh, I thought you guys were like, no, I think she found something she wasn't supposed to.
Yeah.
And
I
that
mean,
was bullshit.
episode 1 itself already established that he's a liar.
Yeah. Just something about, again, the delivery. It's like, well, if you're a computer, like, theoretically, you would, in theory, you would not have any tells when you're lying. You would be able to lie absolutely perfectly. On the other hand, like, that's like one of those things where it's like, does that, yeah.
Because he already lied about the existence of the exit door existing in the first place.
Yeah.
So he's not above lying.
Yeah. So he could have been pretending to have an existential crisis at that moment, but, we'll have to wait and find out.
I've also started hearing theories. I'm gonna try and figure out how to phrase this to not be spoilery. But I've heard theories that the thing that he claims to be concerned about is a mistake he's already made, and that someone is not as they seem.
That seems feasible. I mean, I also wonder if there's... Okay, we have to, like... I want to know who Abel is in this situation, right? Because we saw the, like
C and A, right?
Yeah, like, that's like, oh, okay, well, like, if it wasn't likely enough that was what the name was a reference to, given everything else, like, oh, okay, clearly there's, like, that's... I mean, like, the twist would be if it was, like...
Bubble.
No. If the A was for, like, Adam, and it's like, oh, we're referencing the Bible, but not the way you thought. Okay, right, because it'd be like a father and son company or something, right? But no, it's gonna be Abel, right? Like, and it's like, we'll see what happens with that.
I do kind of want to know what Bubble's deal is.
It depends how dark they want it. Like, again, I have no mouth, but I must scream is really, really fucking dark, and there's a lot of stuff that's like, oh, I couldn't believe
I know
there's some really messed up stuff going on with Bubble, but, or it could be just, it's a funny AI.
As far as how dark things are gonna get, Gooseworks did some interview stuff, with someone saying that, like, one of my friends still thinks this is a kid's show, how can I convince them otherwise? And I think Gooseworks just said, when episode 3 comes out, show it to them.
Oh, boy. Okay, well,
right?
Yeah.
So it's like,
Okay.
it's concerning.
I really just feel like it is, again, though, like, it's one of those books that people, like, think they know what it's about, and then, like, are not, like, will not be prepared when they actually read it, right? So it's, like, I cannot find any record on the internet of what God actually gave this backpack to Trailblazer. I'm going to guess that it is, like... So, like... Apparently, it's specifically she says in character, not the God you're thinking of. So, I bet you it's some specific to continuity one, not... Like, the question is, like, in the Marvel Universe, what God are people going to be thinking of? Right? Again, we've sort of, like, the Norse gods are, like, demonstrably real, at least. I believe so are the Greek, like, that's, like...
Well, I just think it just, like... it's just, like, Thor found it in a garage sale and gave it to her.
Yeah, like, it could be... or like, the aesthetic of it makes me think of DC's New Gods, and I'm wondering if, like, somehow, some kind of, like, she got it through, what's his name? Axis, the character who's the guardian between the DC and Marvel universes.
Oh, right, I forgot that crossover technically exists.
Yeah, and then there was a comic that at the in oh my god, what was it called? It was the like semi-sequel to Watchmen from a couple years ago.
Watch women.
Like just before. No, the what was it called? It was the thing about Doctor Manhattan. It's where we found out Doctor Manhattan was like accidentally responsible for the New 52 and went back and fixed it. What was was it Countdown to something? Because Countdown to that's
Count
the
Chocula.
Crisis. What was it?
I think they should do a gritty reboot of Count Chocula as a superhero.
I feel like that would be sort of in the same. That's the kind of thing that would happen from the same sort of like Doomsday Clock. That was it. Doomsday Clock has a thing that talks about like how Superman's existence is like actually a cornerstone of like reality in a weird way, and it sort of like talks about how it's this repeating pattern through history and talks about previous like major comic events, and it also talks about ones in the future. It's like in 2030 something, and it like implies that there's going to be another crossover with Marvel, but like there's no way that was ever actually like agreed to. But it'd be kind of cool if they would, when we get there, did actually like do that.
I'm just thinking about ridiculous characters that turn into superheroes, and I'm thinking that Count Chocula should be on a team with Grimace.
Well, I mean, weren't there the comics with the McDonald's characters as like superheroes?
Was there? I was just thinking that Grimace would have powers to make people like collapse like if Grimace Shakes allegedly did in the meme.
I don't know. There's definitely been some kind of promotional comics that. I mean, there was the God, I don't know. Why did Batman have that cow sidekick? I feel like that was connected to a tie-in with McDonald's somehow.
Damn, Norbert is shredding! Norbert's getting good at that electric guitar. You! Goodbye.
I could have sworn there was something, but
I have murdered
frankly,
a gnome.
they've done so much. They've done so many different tie-ins with various, like, there obviously there's tons of comic book toys at McDonald's and stuff that, like, actually trying to find what I'm thinking of in this mess is impossible.
You know, I can't believe I didn't think of this until now. As far as super-powered McDonald's mascots, do I need to pull up the old Champions Online stream?
Oh, yeah.
Dark Ronald! And his nemesis, the Hamburglar. Maybe I should play that again sometime. You know, there's some people say you should play music for your plants, and I don't think this is quite what they had in mind.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it probably depends on the plant. I feel like... I don't know.
By the way, the reason I'm using this fake grass and putting my plant inside is because when it snows like this, your plants will go dormant.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So it is it is unambiguously superior to do it this way. Yeah, go for it, Norbis. Jesus. I know we're on fast forward, but dang.
Actually, you know what the backpack looks like? It just looks like it's a galvanic mechanomorph. Upgrade species from Ben 10. Have you seen
No.
My Adventures with Superman?
Nope.
It's the new Superman cartoon. And it's actually like...
I think the most recent Superman thing I consumed is Superman Red Sun, which was ages ago. So
yeah, it's like it legitimately is well done Superman, like, which I didn't think was possible anymore, honestly. Right? Like, it feels like we've like had multiple sort of like, you know, iterations and cycles of everyone involved in making Superman stuff not fucking understanding the character in the slightest, right? And just sort of like being like, well, we can't have him be like this goody. Like, I don't get it. Why does he help? Like, he has to have some trauma or that, or like he lost his entire people. Is that like, well, but he like, you know, I mean. You know, I mean, you look at, like, Man of Steel, and it's like, oh, he's, you know, edgy, and he had to kill because he couldn't do anything else, and you know, he was clearly, like, and, you know, there's a very solid sort of argument for, like, the quality of life in any universe in the DC multiverse is basically predictable by how competent of parents John and Martha Kent were, right? Like...
I'm just thinking about the World of Cardboard speech.
So that was done well. But what I really like about My Adventures with Superman is it kind of like, you know, people get sick of origin stories, but it is very much like it sort of does it goes sort of a route, you know, a kind of akin to like what the Flash and Supergirl CW shows did, right? Or particularly, I'm thinking of the Supergirl one, where, like, you know, she's had powers all her life, but doesn't start like being a superhero until, you know, the sort of inciting incident in the first episode and everything. But so it's like they have the show be about Clark. Like, again, the trick is you don't write Superman. Because Superman is not a real character. Superman is a fake identity that Clark Kent uses to disguise who he is so that he can do superheroing without, you know, right? Clark Kent is like, and this is like, and I've always said, like, fundamentally, if you want to cast Superman well, you have to cast Clark Kent. If you start by trying to cast Superman and then have like, and now can you do like a Clark Kent first, you're doing it backwards and you're going to get it wrong. You have to have Clark Kent first, right? And it does that really well because it's you know, the show opens with Clark is like what, like 23 or something. He's like is his first day as like an intern at the Daily Planet. He's roommates with Jimmy Olsen, and he's just like, you know, trying to get through the day without doing anything weird because he's had these powers and he doesn't know. He's like, in this continuity, like he still has not sort of like found out why he has powers. Like he knows his parents, like he knows his parents found him in like an alien pod, but like he wasn't able to ever like find out about Krypton or anything sort of like that. And he's just trying to like sort of live his life. And then, you know, obviously inciting incident stuff happens and he sort of has to be heroic and then it sort of like goes. And so
and then Raditz shows up. Wait.
I mean, well, okay, so what, and that's the other thing, like, and that's like the other, like, apart from every other problem with like Man of Steel, right? It's like, we're gonna start with the aliens. I'm like, no. You want to start with like Earth, like villains, and again, sort of focus on like Clark Kent's world before you bring in anything from him being Kal-El.
It's like
right?
starting
Like,
with
again,
Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, which I mean, a lot of people I think at this
Right.
point have done and maybe don't realize like why that's not.
Yeah.
But so
honestly, that was such an odd choice to do because it was like Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z are the same story.
yeah,
Like there was only the one Dragon Ball manga. Z was just a thing in the anime.
yeah. But anyway, it's really well done because like again, Superman is like barely a character, right? It is Clark Kent dealing with this stuff, and it's just I don't know, it's really good, and the second season actually starts like later this month. And I'm really excited for it because I legit like I'm just like there's like it made me happy in a way that I can't describe to see them understand the character so well. I hope that they can sort of maintain that. And the animation's very good. It's sort of very anime-esque. I think it might be the same. I think it's the same animation studio that did the animation for Voltron.
Oh.
Like Superman does, in fact, get a magical girl transformation sequence.
Sailor Moon.
But yeah, if you can find it's on. I guess it airs on Adult Swim actually, and then it like the next day goes up on like HBO Max. I refuse to just call it Max. That's stupid. That's not clear what we're talking about. But I'm sure it's a bit like I think I know they put at least the first episode up for free on YouTube, and it's worth checking out in my opinion. But like I like how there's an episode that manages to basically did you ever see Across the Spider-Verse?
No, I only saw the original Spider-Verse.
Are you at least like familiar with like the sense of what the film is from like internet memes of it? Of kind of like thematically how it addresses
not really.
the idea of like
No, they did more
sort of
multiverse stuff.
Yeah, anyway, basically they managed to do a sort of similar and arguably better version of that movie in 20 minutes with Superman. And there's sort of this weird implication, like there's all these universes now, right? Because of stuff like, well, Red Sun isn't quite this, although it sort of is connected in a weird way. But like, Injustice and I mean Man of Steel and just all these universes with like, oh, what if Superman was evil? Wouldn't that be terrifying? And I kind of like there's almost this weird sort of because of how the DC universe exists with how sort of the metaphysics of it related to the comics and fourth wall stuff because of like Grant Morrison and Neil Gaiman and all and Alan Moore and it's sort of like there's this weird implication that all these universes with evil Supermen are like a new phenomenon, right? Like actually on some metaphysical level the multiverse used to have less universes with evil Supermen, but because of sort of like the cynicism that's like rotting away in sort of like our universe's culture and the production of these like inability to imagine an actual Superman and instead doing these like what if it was evil stories, it's actually sort of inflicted this new danger on the multiverse of how like statistically how often a universe will wind up having an evil Superman.
Interesting. Meanwhile,
and again,
shout-outs to Invincible, where apparently evil Invincible universes where Invincible is evil is the norm.
Yeah,
Him being good is a rarity.
Right, and here's the thing: like, I've not seen Invincible. I don't have like any real I don't have anything against it, but I do kind of think that's almost like again that is sort of a manifestation of the same like we are so used to living in a world where people with authority and power are awful that we sort of now have this thought of like, well, of course the norm would be that like it would be ripped, and so thematically I feel like I think I'm given to understand Invincible works well within sort of like dealing with that idea, but it does then kind of in the same way that now DC, so often wanting to do evil Superman stuff, kind of is like, cool, but like, can we, like, that's really depressing though. Can we have some optimism? Like that, you know?
I do
Like,
want
what if that
to.
wasn't true?
I do want to also just briefly acknowledge, when he ends up getting flung around the multiverse a bit. He encounters a caped figure who is conveniently just off screen and says, "So, you're a man who dresses like a bat, and your name is..." I don't know, I'm just saying it seems kind of unoriginal.
I mean, Batman also, I feel, like, it's one of these things where, like, I don't necessarily want to just go into my full-blown, like, thesis paper on, like, superheroes in mythology and how, like, the cultural context of them is sort of, like, caused all these issues. But, like, it does feel like there's this thing of, like, the same thing with Batman. Like, now it's like, well, Batman can't be good because he's a billionaire. It's like, right, yes, that's real life, but this is a fantasy. You're allowed to say anything in a fantasy. The reason it's a fantasy is because that's ridiculous. That would not happen in real life. You would not have a good billionaire in real life. That would not happen. That cannot happen. But then you sort of go back like, okay, why is he a billionaire? Why is Batman a billionaire? Because narratively, there was a need to have him be someone who is unexpected to be hero and have a means of acquiring the resources to do this thing. And we live in a capitalist society, so the answer to that is, well, the reason that he can have all these gadgets and everything is he has lots of money, and then you can sort of work off of that. But that's sort of like, that's abstracting away from the actual sort of like, the fantasy is someone has the resources to do this stuff and uses it to be a hero. And then to set that in sort of modern day society, you're like, well, then he must have a lot of money. It's like, right, but then you're applying sort of like real life logic to what is kind of meant to be like a myth in a way that then kind of pollutes the original idea in a way, right? Like the reason the character was constructed this way is to represent a specific kind of character and a specific kind of thing, and details were done to do that. But that is as a way of sort of formulating them. It wasn't meant to be like that's not the point of the story. And it's increasingly people are like, well, this thing is true in the comics, and in real life it would be this way, so clearly I'm going to write a story about how this should actually happen. It's like, that's not, I mean, it's like the same thing as like, I don't know. I feel like it's almost kind of a similar thing to like how the ancient Greeks did not necessarily think of Zeus as being this horrible, irresponsible, rapist philanderer, because like that was sort of separate from his, like, yes, there were myths where he did all that stuff, but also it was like that wasn't his, like, his character was, he was this sort of like loving sky father thing that then gets borrowed by other religions. And sort of like, it's like you're taking the, like, you're like, it's like people don't have reading comprehension for like themes, and so then they just look at the text, and then they look at what the text would mean if it were a true thing instead of a myth, and then they write new myths that are then not operating on the same level as the older ones, and instead trying to accurately mirror what they observe in real life. And so then you get stuff that increasingly people are awful because people in real life are awful, but the point of the myths is to imagine stuff that's better than that, so that then you have something to. It's like the moral equivalent of the Star Trek communicator eventually becoming a smartphone, right? How are we ever going to have a world where people in authority are actually good people if we don't imagine that that is theoretically a possibility and engage with the moral sort of structures of that on the level of what if it was successful, they could be, like,
Norbert just had a wish to pet Primordial Pouch.
They wish to pet what?
Primordial Pouch. That's one of the dogs we made last time.
Oh, okay.
What, you're not keeping up to date?
I have been finishing up grad school.
How dare you have a reasonable excuse?
I haven't been keeping up to date with myself, let alone anything else.
I mean, understandable. Just random minerals here. Oh, yeah, I know this one. Working on the railroad.
Oh. Ah. Oh, goggle.
Good job, Norbus. Get an instrument.
Do instruments torture count?
Oh, I mean, those he always does. So it's time for something
Yeah.
new.
Mayonnaise? So what are your opinions on the announcement that they're going to make a Sims movie?
They're gonna make a Sims movie?
Yeah, it's...
How?
Okay, well, okay, so it's... I forget, it's this AIM production company that did Barbie, and I believe Margot Robbie is attached. And I'm just like, I feel like you kind of already did a Sims movie with the Barbie
I mean, I guess there's some recurring
movie,
characters
almost. I was like, if they're going to, I'm like, yeah, I can see the folks who made the Barbie movie doing a Sims movie that would like maybe actually be good. But also, I feel like, yeah, you know, how is it gonna like?
They could do like a story about Bella Goth, maybe.
I kind of do want like something that's kind of Matrixy in like that does deal with that, but then I feel like there's it could be good. It probably won't. Is my position, I guess. Right? Like again, that's yeah. I'm thinking of actually one of the better episodes of Jordan Peele's Twilight Zone, where a character realizes that they are living in a simulation, and they like realize it's. I don't remember exactly how it works, but essentially, like, they're going about their life, and then like a thing happens where everyone logs out of this game, and like, or like everyone like is out, like essentially breaks character, right? And it's like, oh, I've got to log out, or and like their own like their partner like is speaking with an accent and talking like they don't. It's just like whereas they're like, no, this is real life, and then it turns out it's because of like some kind of glitch or whatever, and they like lost their memories of who they are in the real world, so they're only the person that they're pretending to be in the simulation. But then it like they're a real person. And I feel like there's like that makes me think of. I actually feel like I remember there being one shot where like there's a lamp that is sort of in frame above the person's head in a way that like seemed like it was intentionally supposed to be the diamond over a sim head. And I feel like that like something that maybe is like in that like it would be weird if they did a Sims movie and the fact that they are simulated in no way has any bearing on it, I feel. But also like you know
Yeah. I'm just thinking of there's a comic that I read where it's the whole people get stuck in an MMO world and the MMO becomes real type of thing. You've seen it before.
Mhm.
Like I think Overlord did it and stuff. But it was like whenever they run into other players, it's like they just remember being a real human person. But the protagonist mostly thinks of themselves as their in-game character with those memories because the player, you understand, was a role player. And they opened the in-game biography feature for their character profile and wrote a backstory for their character. So now, all of the backstory they wrote is real, and they remember it. As if they
Makes
personally
sense.
experienced it.
Yeah, I mean
So they primarily identify with the character, and the player is that other guy they have memories of now. But they're still aware of like game mechanics and stuff like that. It's an interesting dichotomy there.
I think that like again, this is one of those things where I've you've played in D&D games that I've run. Like the idea of the relation between player and character is like it did not get used. But remember I was saying I submitted various psychedelic mushroom magic items to be used in that D&D campaign. Did you miss that?
I might
I
have
shared
missed
it in
that.
the I shared I'll share it again. I what one of the other people who does flavor text for Magic Cards was running a tabletop game for their their Twitch channel, and it had become a thing that it was sort of like a hallucinogenic mushrooms became like a major plot point, and they sort of recruited the other folks in the Discord server for people who write flavor text to submit ideas, and so I submitted a bunch. And one of them that did not get used, but it did get brought up in sort of like the after show where they were just doing a stream talking about the stuff, and I am constantly delighted by how much everyone in the room seemed to love the idea. Is this mushroom, consuming it grants grants a mystical experience where the character their consciousness is fused with their higher self, a Canadian internet comedian performing for an unseen audience. Right? It's like that's literally right because they're a Canadian comedy troupe, and so it's like, oh, that's the player, right? And just like that's like I think where does one end and one be like a character in a game is part of the player in a way that like where your focus is of I am a character who remembers that there was this player, or I'm the player and I am conscious of playing this character, are more closely related than I think a lot of people necessarily think of them as being.
I'm just thinking of there's a homebrew module called Valdo Spire of Secrets. I think I've sent you the PDF, but they have a subclass for Warlock, which is the DM patron, in which they are fully aware of the existence of the DM, and where I think there's stuff like they have advantage on like persuasion checks to perform actions that would advance the plot. And it's like I love that. Just like they are aware on some level that their world is fictional and that the GM is controlling things and that they're trying to appease the GM.
I really like that because that kind of that really speaks again. I mean, I think this is probably clear given what I just said about my idea for the mushroom, right? Of like, or for that matter, again, just like other comment, like that actually does kind of speak to my own sort of like sensibilities when it comes to like metaphysics, right? Of like that's arguably if like I don't think that is a bad metaphor for how like um ceremonial Western esoteric magic actually theoretically works. Right? You just replace DM with God. And that's like, yes, that is the understanding of how this works. You are aware that this is a construction. You are engaging kind of on equal terms with the thing that has constructed this scenario that you are in. And you're not really real, but you are real, and because of that, you know how you can like not just do whatever you want because there are rules, but engage with the world in a way that has meaningful communication with the DM.
Yeah.
How do I copy message link? There we go.
I'm just thinking about some other subclasses from Vault of Spire Secrets as well. Hashtag not sponsored. I want to appreciate two barbarian subclasses.
Yep.
So there's Path of the Rage Mage, which is, you use your anger to cast spells and stuff and use it as a fuel for arcane.
Sure.
And the other one is Path of the Muscle Wizard, which is instead of being a barbarian spellcaster, you're a barbarian pretending to be a spellcaster.
Oh, so I feel this I've heard of at least.
Yeah, it's just like,
Yeah.
What do you mean? Of course I'm a wizard. I've got the pointy hat, the book of gibberish, and if you try to say otherwise, I'll break your face. And you get advantage to intimidation checks to convince people that you're definitely a real wizard.
Well, that's like there's the Tumblr
Like,
thing
I
of
cast
like
True Strike. It's when you really, truly strike someone.
well, like there's the you play as like a giant like orc rogue that uses intimidation instead of
I am invisible.
you can't see me. It's like yeah, definitely. Yeah, I can't see. Yeah. Like yes, or I remember someone was like the character you like. What if the character you play is just like some larger humanoid or whatever, but like they have kidnapped a wizard and strapped them to the end of a stick, and they shout a spell, and then the wizard is actually cast.
That is legitimately a world boss in World of Warcraft.
I like maybe that's because I saw someone's it was on Tumblr, right?
That's not a hyperbole. Like, that is literally that is a world boss in World of Warcraft.
I mean, yeah, so maybe that's where they got the
make the big rocks appear.
Yeah, all right, I put the links to the thing I was talking about in the. Yeah, like I said, that mushroom did not get used, but a number of my other ones did get utilized, and I'm very happy with it. I caused so much chaos that I wasn't even like directly involved, and that fills me with a sense of meaning.
So many Sims getting old.
What happens when time progresses?
Yeah. I think it's all the Sims that were like at the start of being young adults at the beginning of the game. And so they're all approximately the same age, so they're all aging up at the same time, approximately.
Yeah, makes sense.
Eventually, as Sims have kids at different times, it'll spread out more.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
forgot that the shower has a wicker texture.
Seems uncomfortable.
Well, it's a sonic shower. Not like a sonic screwdriver. Completely different.
No, like, yes, because Sonic Screwdriver is from Doctor Who and Sonic Shower is from Star Trek.
This is Star Trek now.
This is like probably not going to be like particularly meaningful to you or anyone listening, but I do like that the most recent episode of Star Trek Discovery, like they're in their last season, and it really felt like, because they do so much serialized storytelling, they're like, we want to do all these like classic Trek episode tropes, and we're going to fit them all into one episode because we have to. Like, we have to go and interact with the society without revealing our advanced technology because of the Prime Directive. We have to. We're forced to compete in some local, competition that we don't like, is inconvenient and dangerous. One of the crew has, due to a misunderstanding, been offered as sacrifice or to be executed. It's just like, really, all at the same time? Oh, and there's something novel about the language, although it doesn't really become a plot element like the Darmok one, but it's like, oh, okay, you were trying to fit all this into one episode, and like, I actually thought they did a pretty good job. I think that, it's such a different show than the other Star Trek shows, but I actually think Discovery has managed to be a pretty good quality of the last, like, since they kind of reset everything at the end of season 2. And season 2 itself even actually really had a lot of good moments, but it was just so focused on fixing all the problems of season 1.
By the way, here's Baja Blast Mistake.
Yeah, that seems like the right name for that.
He was randomly generated.
What does he remind me? The face reminds me of some
Eldritch
sci-fi
being.
or horror monster.
Definitely a horror monster.
Like, it's not quite a gremlin. I don't know. Like something from some movie from like the late 90s, early 2000s. I feel it looks like something specific, but I can't like put my finger on it.
A reminder that you can download this thing from the Sims 3 Exchange and put him in your game.
Maybe is like some alien from like one of the Men in Black movies, maybe.
Oh, Among Us Pond is unfrozen. Nice. Okay, pick those up. I hate the sound they make.
I just realized I'm not getting game audio. I was before.
It's probably because my... I'll restart the stream for you. Probably because my audio cut in and out for a second, and so I guess Discord didn't quite properly reinitialize it. You got it now?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So you're taking a game design class?
Yeah.
Is that part of like a larger like degree program, or is it just like a one-off?
No, it's a game design like program.
Oh, cool. All right.
So it's specialized at school.
That's cool.
And the tuition cost for this is completely covered for me by a government program. So for me, it's free.
Rad.
Yeah, it's a two-year thing. First year is kind of general game design, all the all the various fields, programming, modeling, level design, etc. And then year 2, we pick a field to specialize in. It takes us more
Makes sense.
specialized.
Yeah, that's how a lot of that kind of stuff is. Yeah.
The funny thing is, like, there's 6 rotating modules for the year 1, and I just happened to get in at the same time as them doing the intro to game design module, which is just one of the 6. Some people could be doing it last.
Wait, hang on. So, like, run that by me again. So they rotate what the module is.
Yeah. So like, there's 5 people. There's like 4 or 5 people in the class with me,
Sure.
and only me and one other guy are new students. Others are continuing.
Okay, so they take intro to game design, but not as a beginning. But it's still
Yeah. Just like
that's
whichever.
not an
that's
ideal
just the,
system.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty small. It's like, I think I just got the one teacher, so.
Well, it's just like, it depends on, I guess, like, what the other classes are, but I sort of feel like that's like, if it's really stuff that, like, here's the introduction, then if you don't get that and you have to do other stuff, then it's just like, well...
Well, I think a lot of the stuff in this particular module also is, like, history of games.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we were watching the thing with Epic Win as well.
The first video game was invented in 1962 by John Video Games.
Oh no, it's not. We're not talking about the history of video games. We're talking about the history of games.
Ooh, alright, so all the way back to, oh my god, what's it called?
Prehistory.
The Egyptian... Well, I'm trying, like,
No, because it's
start
stuff like... Because nobody said the history of human games, either.
Oh, okay, well, so then that gets a little bit into, like, how are we defining game? But
yeah,
fair
because
enough.
it's stuff like, animals play fighting.
Sure, okay, yeah. That's one of those things where it's like, play, is it a game? Is it actually kind of interesting question?
I also want to say that, like, as the teacher was talking about, the functions of play and these sorts of things. And it's like, it can help establish, hierarchies in animals, like, figure out who's the alpha.
That's what I was thinking of.
Let me finish. Figure out who's the alpha, who's the omega. And I'm like, I'm sorry?
Mm-hmm.
I think you've been on
AO3
too much.
I mean, yeah. No, the Royal Game of is the one that I was trying to think of the name of.
Yeah. No, but he's straight up like, are you sure you're not mixing that up with Omegaverse?
So, like, are you, like, reading, like, Homo Ludens, or are you, like...
No, he wrote up a little thing. And then we watched a TED Talk with the Epic Win.
All the, this was years and years ago, right? It's probably like 2018 maybe. On Twitter, just because I follow lots of people who work, making Magic the Gathering and everything, right? There was, like, I was aware of, like, in game development, there was, like, a discourse around, like, what, is this, like, okay, is Candyland a game, right? Mark Rosewater, head, developer for Magic, famously argues, well, no, it's not, because actually it's sort of like a thing that is teaching children what a game is like, but it's not, because you're not actually doing anything that dictates the outcome, right? Once you've shuffled the cards, you are just following instructions.
Oh, this paparazzi just died on my front lawn.
You know what? It's no foul play was suspected. No further comments at this time. So that's like, okay, so then, well, what does, like, what would you have to change about Candyland so that it is a game, what constitutes a game, etc., etc. And so then, of course, this, then eventually converged with the perennial, is a hot dog a sandwich question, until someone tweeted out, is a hot dog a game? And that just sort of broke everyone, I think.
Well, that happened.
Mm-hmm. You know how it is.
You know how it is with spaghetti. What's this one? Cool, I got a blank certificate.
Well, that means you can put whatever you want on it, right?
I think you can probably just get those online.
Yeah, I mean, you can, right?
Where did
Or from, like, Office Depot.
Where
or
did
whatever.
that go? I put it down. Where did it go?
They're, like, right next to, like, the paper you get that has, like, the, like, shipping labels or whatever on it.
I just put the thing down here. Where did it go?
Well, it's blank, so it disappeared.
No, I put down the other one.
Oh.
I put down my guitar certificate, and it just was like, goodbye. Like, okay then, I guess I don't have that anymore. That's probably fine.
If you're going to, like, Pretty Human, though, it's like, well, the first game was when one microbe decided to play Can I Eat This Other One?
His green screen face is back.
Yeah.
Alright, and now I'm realizing the background is green because that's his move. It wasn't that he put a green square in front, it's just he was still invisible.
Ah, okay.
Green was the background.
You can put whatever you want in the background, then. Have you ever seen the pic? I'm sure I've shared it at some point. The picture of them filming Super Sentai. I think it was Time Ranger, but it's like they have 4 of the Rangers in front of a green screen, and then behind the Green Ranger they have like a much smaller blue screen.
Yeah, I think so.
It's like, oh yeah, they would have to do that, wouldn't they? I wonder if that's like actually ever been like one of the reasons that like green is not as particularly. I feel like I have to like look at it. I feel like green is less frequently used.
I recently saw a video on
I'm gonna look at that.
recovering an old technique that was like better than green screens for chroma keying, where they could do like transparencies and stuff too.
Which one?
Let's see if I can find it.
I feel like I'm familiar with some stuff like that. I don't know
feel like visual
like what you're referencing.
Sodium vapor light. Posted in live blog. Great thumbnail, by the way.
Is that James McAvoy?
I don't know, it's Corridor Digital.
Probably he looks like James McAvoy in that picture. Specifically, like when he was playing Professor X in the like First Class. Yeah, green is definitely one of the less often used colors. So I feel like that may actually, like, but like obviously they use it frequently enough, so it clearly isn't like a huge issue. But I wonder if there is like a that's the first design to get cut when they're like designing a new team. They're like, yeah, but we only want 5, and if we have a green one, we have to use the like. Also, probably they like advanced beyond that now anyway, but like, which is maybe why we get more Green Rangers now. Like they've now progressed past the technological limits of that. Oh wow, I'm so behind. I had not. I was just scrolling through the teams. I have not actually seen the 2024 Super Sentai team yet. That is, huh?
Yeah,
You know what? Let me hang on. I'll share the image. I will say, I appreciate them trying something different, and it's kind of cool, but it definitely also feels like not like a like it's different enough that it's a little like that's a lot of white and gray, right?
I see. Oh yeah. And their faces are all tires.
Yeah, I mean, I assume it's like I kind of like the sci-fi like armored sneaker boots though. Like I like the design. It just is like that doesn't quite look like Power Rangers.
Yeah.
Or, like it's not Power Rangers, right? It's Super Sentai, but I mean,
Speaking
like
of Sentai,
I will.
have you seen? There's an anime airing this season. That's like I think the translated title is something like "Go Go Loser Ranger,"
I'm familiar with it. I have not watched it yet.
where like the Power Ranger knockoffs are the bad guys. Or like, I mean, they're narratively the bad guys. In universe, they're
Yeah, no,
supposedly the
they're
good guys,
both,
but they
yeah,
don't
yeah, yeah.
really act it.
There've been a couple shows like that, I believe. I have not seen this one though yet. Like I said, obviously I've been quite busy. But I will say, like, they have been experimenting more with designs. Like, here's the last team before that one. And I think that, like, that actually looks rad, right? Like, that's cool.
It's like,
But
it's like after a year, they defeated the bad guys' bosses and took them all out, and then they basically like, well, we're popular and famous and getting a lot of resources, so you are gonna act like we haven't won yet, and are gonna keep doing Monsters of the Week for us to do in scripted fights, so that we can keep having sponsors and be celebrities.
Yeah, again, this goes back to what I was talking about earlier, with kind of like this cynicism towards like superheroes in this way that like it's essentially become like it feels to me like I don't know if this is intentional, but that feels like a commentary on like how superhero media has become so like commercialized to the point of like the MCU got to the Infinity War stuff, wrapped it up, and it's like we're gonna keep going and we're gonna do more of it. It's like, do you even have a plan? Like, no, but this makes us money, so even though we've wrapped up the story, we're gonna keep making more. Or like, there's also like almost like a hint of like when Power Rangers was being made, they ran out of Zero Ranger footage, and they paid Toei to make new fight footage that was not originally used in a Zero Ranger episode. It was just like, please film more fight scenes for us to use in Power Rangers. And so it's like also kind of feels like a callback to that. But just like I don't know, it's that it's an interesting idea, I guess. I don't know. I mean, the cool thing about the Zoo Ranger or the Zoo 2, as it was referred to, was that they were able to be like, can you please have these two Rangers like do team up moves more often or whatever, because then that makes sense with the characters in Power Rangers more. Right. So like they were able to have the green and pink Rangers in the same shot more often, so that, Kimberly and then later Kat and Tommy, like that like made sense, or like stuff like that. And then by Lightspeed Rescue, they started just doing their own filming new fight scenes anyway, right? Because Lightspeed Rescue had an entire Ranger that was not in Go Go 5. And then the most recent season, which is like the last they had planned for now, they're not doing anymore, basically was entirely like original footage. Like they used some footage from old Zord fights, but like the Ranger costumes and everything were all original to Power Rangers.
It's like at that point, you just might as well, right?
Yeah,
You have
and
more
I think
control over
that's yeah, and again that part of that is now Power Rangers is owned by a larger company, right? They're owned by Hasbro now. Hasbro can afford to do that.
I'm just thinking of, this is kind of a niche comparison, but I remember there's a MLP D&D comic called Friendship is Dragons. It's actually in its final arc now, by the way. They're wrapping it up.
They originally used screenshots and eventually decided it was easier to draw things.
There was like one sequence. They still do screenshots for like 99% of stuff, but like there was one sequence where they added a boss fight.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's generally sort of that's the same kind of logic. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like they had. Do you remember the season 1 finale, Best Night Ever, the Grand Galloping Gala?
Yeah, and I feel like I feel like we've sort of talked about this before, if not from the perspective of that they did the sequence drawn. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was they got Prince Blue Blood turned out to be the leader of the Thieves Guild, and they got him the Alicorn amulet, and he puts on the amulet, and they have a boss fight against him.
Yeah, that was not.
It's like, wait a minute, I don't remember that part of the
show. Hard to cut together shots from the Yeah,
but no, they had someone. They commissioned someone to do the panels in like the show art style.
Well, which is not like, if you know what you are doing, which I'm not saying I do, it is not that hard of a style to emulate. That was like an intentional thing. In later seasons, they did more creative stuff than that. But because it was in Flash, because it was such flat colors, like that's something that you could do. Like if you can draw and do that, like that's. That I think that's one of the reasons that sort of like fan content was so successful, is because it was. I don't know. Yeah, I guess my feeling is like, it at some point, once various production things happened and certain teams of Power Rangers teams of Sentai got sort of skipped over for adaptation, and they started doing it. It's just like my only like issue is like, okay, it's fine that they're sort of spinning this off into its own thing, and it doesn't need to rely on the footage. On the other hand, there is like some charm to that, and there are like various teams that I would have liked to see Power Ranger versions of, just because I like the aesthetic or whatever. But like then and like again, like they used Zords from Q Ranger, which was this sort of like space zodiac constellation themed series for Cosmic Fury the last season. But they used the Zords from that, but the costumes were entirely sort of like, they were fine, but they were I'm sad we did not get the Q Ranger costumes, because the Q Ranger costumes were very, very cool. They were another one of those ones that had like a little bit more armor, and sort of like the colors were just like the visors were very cool shapes and everything. I feel like a lot of what they did with the season would have worked with that, and it would have been cool to see, but whatever. But like, I still have somewhere I wrote the pilot and an outline for a whole season of adapting. One of the seasons they skipped over was Plateau Ranger versus Lupin Ranger. So it was, the plot of the season was there were two Sentai teams, and one was police officer themed, and one was like, gentleman thief themed. And they were essentially two different shows. They would actually air like alternating weeks, and then eventually the plots kind of met up, and they were each other's antagonists. But then there was also like a actual like antagonist, sort of like, and they eventually team up. But like, I had written a thing of like, this would work really well for now that we're up to. It's going to be 2025 next year. That's the year Power Rangers SPD took place. And there had been this thing that had been going on up until like Jungle Fury, right? Of like morphing technology becoming increasingly available, right? Like in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, The Rangers got their powers from an alien wizard. And it's not until Lightspeed Rescue that, or like in Turbo, it's implied that like Billy helped develop the turbo powers, but it's still largely from aliens. And Lightspeed Rescue is the first time we have like, okay, a like super well-funded military project can develop morphers now without the help of aliens. That's like a major step forward. And then we have, Time Force right after that, and it's like, okay, sure, by 3000 we have like morphers are like commonplace enough that that's like expected loadout for the Time Police. But then you have like, but like, and then you eventually, you get to Operation Overdrive, where this single wealthy billionaire was able to sort of develop morphing technology, and then you get to Jungle Fury, where he's secretly a ninja and has like, but he's like, RJ, runs a pizza restaurant, but he was able to get like morphing technology off the black market and develop it into the morphers, right? And so it's becoming much easier to get. And so I like the idea of there being a season that has like morphing technology is so easily accessible at this point that it is feasible that there would be sort of the, state-sponsored official rangers that are like working for like SPD, but also like a vigilante team that's like, no, they're not really following like the Power Ranger code. We're Power Rangers, but we're vigilante, and that would be a really cool thing to then use this like these rival teams to sort of like adapt. But no, never. Obviously, it's not. I might do it as like a fanfic at some point, but
I'm just thinking about the adapting screenshots thing again. I'm sure I've mentioned Darths. I'm similar to Friendship is Dragons. I'm also thinking about Darths and Droids.
Yeah.
Have I mentioned on stream the changes they did with the story?
Yeah, and they were able to sort of like regenerate, like they took the twist and were able to like use people's expectations. Yeah.
And they freaking like at the end of episode 6, they added the helmetless Darth Vader to have Natalie Portman's face in there. But still, like, burned up and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I will argue, for as frustrating as so many of the changes are, like, having it just be Hayden Christensen as he looked prior to getting burnt by magma works pretty well thematically, I think. On the other hand, like, now, I think some of the stuff they've done with the Disney Plus series, there's like, oh, okay, maybe there's like enough Anakin that like there's a reason that he should at least like look like Vadery, but like, whatever.
I recently had a thought for an AU of Star Wars that I thought might be difficult to pull off believably, but could be very interesting. And that is, Anakin never technically falls to the dark side. He remains, in his mind, a Jedi using the power of the light side. He's just totally in the wrong. He is fully manipulated by Palpatine, but still following the light.
I mean, I feel like, again, this sort of comes down to like,
so there'd be stuff like,
is it like,
so
the light side and dark side distinction itself is one of those like, well, that's obviously not an accurate way of like understanding the Force, and so like it's very like.
But he'd still like follow the Jedi code and things like that. He would think of himself as a Jedi. He'd have the blue lightsaber. And it's stuff like he wouldn't directly participate in Order 66 and killing all the Jedi, let alone the younglings. But he also wouldn't like step in to stop it either. Be like, it's a horribly unfortunate, tragic thing, but it needs to happen.
Well, again, congratulations, you've just described how, generally speaking, this actually worked out in history, right?
Well, yeah.
Like, look at the, Christian schisms, and it's like, well, we, like, the Catholics clearly aren't actually following Jesus' teachings. We Protestants are, and so, the Protestants claim that they're, and then they start killing each other over it, and that's, it's a shame, but, they're heretics, and they're not following, and we're actually the ones who understand the teachings properly, and like, I mean, like, just applying that to the Jedi, like, he could be like, look, yes, this is all Sith sort of, like, stuff, but this, I think, lines up more with the Jedi code than what the Jedi have become, which are, and there was sort of this, it's that sort of awkward thing of like in original Star Wars there was this implication of the Jedi being this kind of like persecuted religious order, and then we get to see the prequels and they're like, they're also part of this sort of like galactic bureaucracy. Like they're not being presented the way that kind of it would have made sense for all this stuff, and so like then you do get into some complicated like, okay, they clearly like they're not really doing what the Jedi were supposed to be doing. They are sitting around and then they're fighting in the, like yeah, there's I
The
think
Jedi
that
were
you're right
definitely in
yeah.
decline.
Yeah, yes, exactly, yeah. I feel like there is definitely a sense in the original films, if you can like forget the prequels, that the Jedi like not only were in decline, but like that they were that like it was much closer to like there was a Holocaust, right? Like they were a religious group that was wiped out, and they were peaceful and good and all the things that Western people want to just imagine this secluded religious group that isn't tainted by modern stuff is, and they were more connected to the universe, so they were able to use the Force and all that stuff. And then it's like, that's you've really like that's ultimately not what they wound up being, but also like we're hearing it from someone like again we hear a lot of that from Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan obviously as a believer, but then and also probably not wanting to like I don't know. I think again, there's weird stuff that comes up from the fact that these were not like the prequels came later, right?
Yeah. And also
And
the fact that
because-
like all of the Jedi dressed like Obi-Wan did in Episode 4. Never mind the fact that Obi-Wan was dressed like that because he was trying to disguise himself as a native of Tatooine.
Yeah, I mean that's one of those things where like
Which means that retroactively now, Obi-Wan, not only was Obi-Wan hiding on Tatooine, aka Anakin's home world, he was hiding out on Tatooine dressed as a Jedi.
Well, I mean, so have you seen you haven't seen Kenobi, have you?
No, I haven't.
They do actually, I think they do a pretty good job of kind of like welding that properly. So it's like, okay, this makes sense. I see why he's here. And like as far as the outfit goes, no one really seems to no one knows what the Jedi dressed like, right? So like, which doesn't make sense in the time frame that it actually is. But like, that's what we've accepted, right?
It was within a generation.
Like, and again, Kenobi is like what, like 8 years later or something, right? But like, I guess the argument is even at that point, like, we see the Jedi, we see them at the temple, we see them on the battlefield. But has the average person seen a Jedi at that point, right? Like, there is like some, like, the fact that people don't believe they ever existed, or that the Force, like, when that's happened in their lifetime, that's kind of like silly. But it actually is believable that like people don't know what a Jedi looks like. Now, when you find out, when they've established that they have these Sith and Inquisitors that are going around looking for them, then it becomes a little sillier that like someone would dress remotely like a Jedi, but also like, I mean, he wears like the cloak over it, and he generally doesn't, like it's not like he's it is a weird continuity thing that I think they actually did manage to sort of like navigate well enough, right?
They did their best.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed Kenobi. Obviously the Disney Plus Star Wars stuff is quite hit or miss, right? Book of Boba Fett was awful. Mandalorian was, has certainly like had a good season 1. Whatever, but like. I mean,
the freaking Luke Skywalker cameo was really startling, though.
Yeah, and like, there's some stuff with sort of then like what's Luke's doing in the continuity now that like I just like I'm not. Again, it's one of like people sort of had the idea of how he was in like the extended universe before. Like there's, but like I also kind of like my position is like if we're accepting all this is a show that is telling a story of something that happened long ago. And this is also why I can tolerate the sequel trilogy a lot more than I think a lot of people do. But like, this is a telling of it. We are not actually seeing it. This is a movie based on historical events that occurred a long, long time ago. And it is not like the overall arc of this kind of thing happened I think is well enough structured that like the character details that are frustrating or whatever, I'm like, okay, that's this telling of it. You could have another telling, and I can kind of jive with that. So that's where I wind up landing on it.
I'm just thinking about this hypothetical alter Anakin, and like if he's continuing to be like the "I am a Jedi" thing, would he even get the title Darth Vader? Because I mean that would be a Sith title.
No, probably not.
I think he would probably start referring to himself instead as a Jedi Master, like self-declared.
I mean,
He'd be Master Skywalker.
That's there's real life historical precedent for basically that exact approach to things. After getting kicked out of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, Aleister Crowley essentially self-proclaimed himself having completed the initiations for all the ranks above where he was when he was kicked out. It's like, well, no, I did it the right way, and like that's exactly. Like a very real life version of basically the same idea. So I think that lines up perfectly.
Now, the real question is, do you think this Anakin would have still had to fight with Obi-Wan on Mustafar, and would it have gone the same way? Because presumably he wouldn't be channeling rage like he did in canon. He'd be still, at least trying to be a Jedi. Whether he'd be succeeding is, of course, an entirely different matter, but he would be... I mean,
I actually think there's a certain argument that, like, you shouldn't... Like, the idea of, like, not having these attachments and all these things, like...
I mean, think, it's still very much an Old Republic idea, too, so...
Yeah, I feel like if it were, like, the problem is Palpatine manipulating him.
Yes.
I feel like it is very... feasible.
Basically, I want to know if he still ends up in the Darth Vader suit, even if he doesn't go by Darth Vader.
I still think
has to, right?
I still think that, like, yeah, his time as Darth Vader before he gets the suit, despite the movie not being good, like I think that's actually like there's something very interesting there, right? So the idea of him being Darth Vader but not having like, I don't know.
And I think the idea of him being Master Skywalker, but in the Vader suit, would also be quite interesting, and kind of like the opposite way.
Well, there is there's a comic panel that has him in like a white version of the Darth Vader suit.
Yeah.
Where like that is what's going. I can't remember the context for it though, but it's like he is going by like he is a Jedi Master, but he is in the Vader suit. I can't remember what it's from. I assume it's from the official comics somehow. Maybe some weird timeline shenanigan stuff. I don't know. I mean, I feel like even without Palpatine, I feel like it would be very difficult for him to do this. But I feel like there is an interesting story, of Anakin trying to figure out how to approach his mentor and friend with what ultimately does amount to a crisis of faith.
Yeah. And he wouldn't have from my point of view, the Jedi are evil. He wouldn't have
right,
that,
which is
he is a Jedi.
Like, well, and also the writing would just
be better.
Like, be better, yeah. But like, I mean, like, you can sort of like, I feel like I've seen movies that essentially have that scene again, going to real life examples of like, a young, like, a Catholic priest talking to another Catholic priest of like, I feel like, this, Martin Luther, it seems right. I mean, the Pope shouldn't do that. And like, that's like a very like scary thing.
The idea that he would try and recruit Obi-Wan actually is a good idea.
Yeah, and I feel like Obi-Wan honestly, like, would be somewhat sympathetic in a lot of ways. And I feel like there is a very interesting narrative where if Anakin were able to sort of have that conversation and things were not being kind of sabotaged by Palpatine, but like Palpatine, like I can sort of see a way that like if Obi-Wan is sympathetic, then that would also sort of like be what then tips Anakin away from it. Whereas even without any of the sort of more heavy-handed stuff, if Obi-Wan was not sympathetic to that, it's like that's not the teachings I understand, and like did sort of like was sort of like hardline about it, then that could still quite organically, I think, push Anakin to the dark side, just maybe not within like hour and a half runtime, right? I still like the, he has his hand replaced at the end of episode 2, and I remember thinking like it would be interesting if like he just very slowly has parts replaced until he's Darth Vader, not just he falls into magma and then
Okay.
that's the whole thing, right?
I also think it'd be
I
fun
think-
to see him with the Darth Vader, like, the base part of the suit, not without the cape and stuff. Instead, he would have, like, the black Darth Vader, like, suit for the life support, but then over the top of it, he has Jedi robes.
Yeah, I feel like he at least appears without the cape in Kenobi, and it is just like the suit, and it's very interesting how that changes sort of what it changes how he moves, right? Like a cape is like that's part of sort of like the sort of then your sort of movement language, and so then to sort of like not have that encumbrance and that resistance, you fight very differently with the lightsaber. And I think there was I remember somewhere seeing I assume it was in Kenobi, a fight scene where he didn't have the cape, and it's just like, okay, this is like, it's interesting how that sort of, but like the full cloak, I mean, like there's also like the thing of like they always like take the, like, I'm just thinking of like the scene of like Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan both just like, and I think like Obi-Wan and Anakin when they face Grievous in episode 3, like they just like drop these cloaks everywhere. It's like, are they ever gonna like go back and pick them up, like,
Glittering. I just
Like-
thinking as well, in terms of would Anakin try and recruit Obi-Wan to Palpatine, not to the dark side, but to Palpatine.
Mhm.
How about Ahsoka?
Well,
I'll
I mean,
admit to
has-
not being particularly familiar with that part of the expanded universe, but
Yeah, I mean
it's
that
a
certainly
Padawan.
is. I know they they finally faced off in Rebels, right? And then-
like I said, I'm not particularly familiar with that part
Yeah,
of the expanded
I'm trying to.
universe, but-
That's like it's Ahsoka went on to be like a major, sort of like essentially founding member of like the rebellion, and I believe we do get on screen at some point. I think it's in Rebels. Basically find like finding out that Anakin didn't die. He's Darth Vader. And we definitely get that scene of like that's one of like actually like very good sort of emotional beats in Kenobi is Obi-Wan finding out. Like no, it's like how, because Obi-Wan knew. God, I'm trying to remember, like there's some revelation where is it Darth Vader finds out that Obi-Wan is alive? Like there's something where that it becomes relevant that's not information that is well known. Right, and it's done very well, and I can't remember now how it. Because, like, wait, did Obi-Wan know? I guess not, right? He knew he turned to the dark side.
But like, I don't know if did Anakin ever use the name Darth Vader in
Right,
front
that's
of
what
him
I'm
on Mustafar?
like. I don't think so, and so now I'm trying to remember, and I
So like,
believe
as far as Obi-Wan would have known, Anakin died on Mustafar and Darth Vader.
yeah,
is
I think
someone
that's
else.
correct. Yes. So I was trying to because that's what I initially remembered the scene being in Kenobi is where he finds out and is like obviously phenomenally horrified by this, right? And I'm like, well, wait, no, didn't he already know? And it's like, no, he didn't. So no, that was
I just think about Darths and Droids again, and the fact that in Darths and Droids canon, Darth is an honorary title for a retired Jedi. And so in episode 1, Palpatine gleefully introduces himself as Darth Sidious. And he's not a Sith. And then, like in episode 5, Luke goes to Dagobah, and Yoda introduces himself as Darth Sane, and Luke doesn't realize that it's Yoda, the person he's looking for.
What's the story of that the developers on like Force Unleashed or whatever like wanted to ask George Lucas for like, you know, a Darth name, and he submitted like the stupidest sounding shit in the world, and they're like, okay, I guess we're just gonna stick with Star Killer. But yeah, and I'm like, I only watched like the first episode of Ahsoka. It did not really hook me. And I knew there was some controversy around casting and stuff. So, you know, but like I think like Vader definitely, I don't think ever went and like was like, hey, I'm Anakin, you're my disciple, please join me. But like I think later on, I don't think I ever actually saw it, now that I think about it, but I think in Rebels, when they confront, my understanding is that there was some kind of sort of, you know, the relationship was such that Vader was like, you were my apprentice, you know, please, you know, come join me. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like it could be a thing here where if Obi-Wan doesn't join him, he turns to Ahsoka.
Mm-hmm. I could also just see like, there's a sort of narrative where like Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Ahsoka like do essentially like they are all on board with like the Jedi clearly are not, like there's something wrong here. We also realize that Palpatine is a Sith and he's manipulating us and he's not good. But then we're fighting on two fronts. On one hand, we are essentially forming a schism. You know, we are heretics in the eyes of the Jedi Order, but also we're not Sith.
Yeah.
And then like,
or it could maybe be like Anakin thinks he's using Palpatine, being like, I don't agree. Like he is a Sith. I don't agree with all of his things, but for now, he is useful in helping me to get the Jedi to be reformed.
Which is how a lot of people talked about, you know, some real life politics stuff, right? Of like, oh, he's evil, but it's, you know, we can use it because
I can fix him.
Yeah. No, I mean, I also could also just see like, imagine, you know, Palpatine finds some other, you know, pupil and encourages sort of like this schism within the Jedi because, you know, a house divided can't stand, and if the Jedi are fighting each other over two different interpretations of their doctrine, then that's easier for him to do this.
Here's another idea. Anakin insists that, for Order 66, he insists that, unlike in canon, he insists that the younglings are spared so that they can be trained as the first of the new Order of Jedi.
Yeah.
Kind of indoctrinate them. And then Palpatine, of course, sneakily starts, when Anakin's not around, starts imbuing Sith ideology into them.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to remember, I feel like also was it also in Kenobi, they have the flashback to the younglings being killed just to establish that, like, hey, look, some of them got away. He didn't actually slaughter an entire room of children. Like, you're really okay.
That doesn't make it okay.
Like, he still tried.
Attempted genocide is not better than actual genocide.
Yeah, but I mean, like, you know, I guess variable sized spoilers for Kenobi, right? Like, they wanted to be able to have it revealed that various characters maybe were those younglings. And if they're all dead, you can't do that. Okay. No, but that is the essentially there's, I forget how the sequence goes, but like there is another adult Jedi that is involved in like helping some of the younglings get away, and he's played by the guy who played Jar Jar Binks.
All right.
But he does it very seriously, and I remember everyone sort of talking on social media like, this is great because this actor is actually like a good actor. he really, really got screwed over by the prequels, right?
Yeah.
He, was very unhappy with it. He still, he loved Star Wars before that. He had this transition. It's very good that he now gets to come back, and even if it's a fairly minor role, potentially one that could be, expanded in various other media or whatever, though, like, and be, do not only get to actually like be a Jedi, but like be the Jedi who like saved these kids, and it was a very sort of cool way of maybe like not making up to him for Jar Jar, but like that is sort of a cool thing, I think.
So I have a question for you for our hypothetical Jedi Vader, I guess we can call it for now. What color do you think his lightsaber would be? Would it still be blue? Would it be red? Would it be purple? Mace Windu?
It depends. I think
I will say I don't think it would be green.
no. How I was saying I can accept the sequel trilogy a lot more easily than other people because I kind of accept that it's like, well, something kind of like this happened, but like this is not. Like there is this sort of pattern in the sequel trilogy that I think was disappointingly not followed through on due to everything that sort of happened behind the scenes, but does kind of eventually it ends in a way that it's as though they were trying to pick it back up of the sort of synthesis of like you can't be beholden to the past, right? Like you have Force Awakens was very much like this is just A New Hope again. This is very rooted in the past. The past has the answers, ad fontes, to the beginning. That's where the answers are. The Jedi, the people who came before, the big characters from that. That's who we have to go find Luke Skywalker. We have to all that stuff, and then the Last Jedi, right? Very sort of strongly having this theme of like letting the past go. But that also has major issues with it, right? If you just like burn the past, then you can't learn from it, right?
Yeah.
And
It's
so there
almost-
is sort of
It's almost like they went into that trilogy without a plan or something. Oh wait,
Well,
they
here's the
did.
thing. Well, except Disney did not have a plan. Disney did not. J.J. Abrams had a plan, right? And here's the thing: J.J. Abrams has done a lot of stuff that's dumb. I'll acknowledge that. But I really think the idea that he somehow single-handedly is responsible for those movies being bad is nonsense.
It's because
he
every
did
time
that
they
one.
change it to a new person, they're like, let's ignore what the last person did. And I'm gonna do my own thing.
Exactly. And if you look at oh my god, what is episode 9 called?
Rise of
The last-
Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker, thank you. If you look at Rise of Skywalker, I'm
Somehow
confident
Palpatine returned.
like that like you can see where when J.J. Abrams was hired to do Force Awakens, he had an idea for a 3-episode trilogy, right? He had an idea for a trilogy. He gave that to Disney. He said, "Here's how here's. I know you're getting other directors to do this stuff, but like I think this is sort of like here's what I'm setting up." And then Disney said, "No, we're not doing that." Right? And then Rian Johnson came in, and Rian Johnson in particular was like, "I'm going to do something like completely different," and he did something that was, I think, very good. I think that the fact that it was sort of co-opted for all these just sort of various political things meant that it wound up getting defended more than it should have on some grounds where it did kind of like it did like first off it was kind of silly to be like, oh well, I know that there was a plan, but I'm going to throw it out and I have this better idea that I'm going to do.
Poor
Yeah,
Finn, by the way. Poor Finn, by
What?
the way.
Yeah, no, really, yeah. Like there's a lot of issues with The Last Jedi that I think again just at the time everyone was sort of like so busy defending it having an Asian woman in it that they were like, anyone who criticizes this movie in any way must secretly be angry about it for the reasons that racists are and that Russia is funding trolls to be, and there can't possibly be legitimate criticism, and so it wound up getting put on more pedestal. But that's a whole other issue, right? But like, but I feel like if you look at Rise of Skywalker, you can see Abrams' ideas for episode 7 or episode 8 and 9, and I'm confident that in his idea of how it worked, episode 8 would have basically gone up to the confrontation where Chewbacca is kidnapped and Rey accidentally uses the Force lightning, right? Because if you actually look at the movie, that's like Chewbacca being kidnapped is resolved immediately, even though it's filmed and done in a way as though this is meant to be some kind of cliffhanger. Imagine if episode 8 ended with that confrontation, and we have Chewbacca being kidnapped, and Rey's accidentally used lightning, and that's the mystery that we're left on, and we're like, how is this going to get resolved in episode 9? We don't know what's going on, what's happening here, or no, we don't even know that Chewbacca was kidnapped because we couldn't. There was like the bait and switch of like which prisoner ship got blown up or whatever, right? It's like, oh, Chewbacca might be dead. Rey's used Force lightning. What the hell is going on here? And then you have the last movie, but he had to like mesh. He had to push 2 movies into 1 movie to get back on track after episode 8 got used to get things off track. And not only that, but because there was all this negativity around it that was sort of maybe manufactured but did exist, and so then Disney was like, we have to like, they brought in the same guy who like rewrote freaking like Justice League after responses to Batman v Superman and stuff. So it's like, and so like you look at J.J. Abrams and it's like, I have an idea for a movie. I already have to like account for this extra story element, but some of that I can work in. Oh, and then I have this other guy who's not necessarily a very good writer, but is very good at like trying to figure out the most like milquetoast like not centrist like the actual like political position, but like centrist what centrists think they're trying like just like I've come up with a compromise that makes no one happy, where we're trying to appeal to all these different fans who have different opinions about Last Jedi, right? And you kind of see how Rise of Skywalker happened, right? But sort of what I was saying there is like one of the story threads that like I do feel like they did try to bring in a little bit, but they weren't able to do nearly as well as they should have. And part of it was like bringing back Palpatine. Who knows whether that would have worked better if he'd had an extra movie and wouldn't have. Who knows? But the idea of like thesis and antithesis and synthesis. And I think that I do really like that at the end of Rise of Skywalker, Rey's lightsaber is yellow, because that is not a color that is generally associated with
It's just a new
either
one.
of the old. Yeah, and to be fair, there are in the extended canon other yellow lightsabers, but it's still it's the same thing as like in Fringe where they had the red and blue opening titles, and it means something with like it's neither of those. It's this other thing. You're like that's. So I kind of think if Anakin is breaking off from the Jedi, but also not as if like it would like yellow there would also work.
Yeah, that
But
makes.
so that very long way of getting to that. But that's my reasoning.
So do you think he would have his same saber with a different color crystal, or would he still lose his saber on Mustafar? And then
I mean, I feel like again, it depends on the details. If he's
Yeah.
talking with Obi-Wan, I
Yeah.
don't know why they would have ever gone
Yeah.
to Mustafar
Yeah, well,
in the first place.
well, more to the point, if he loses it, period. Because then that leads to the question of, if Anakin never loses his lightsaber, does Luke just not have a lightsaber until he builds his own?
Well, I mean, again, if Anakin doesn't turn to like, I feel like that's a little bit like you've already.
Yeah. Is Luke even on his own? Is the other question or is he being raised alongside the other potentially spared younglings?
Exactly. I feel like once you have made this major of a change, you can't expect to then go forward in time and find it to be a largely comparable situation.
Yeah. That's true.
What is he even going to be named Luke? Because theoretically, maybe Anakin was there at the birth of his children and had some input into naming them, right? Like then, because those were just what Padme sort of like said, and they're like, okay, well, there's but there wasn't any. Well, maybe they had like I don't know. Maybe
it depends on whether Padme
had they talked about that ahead of
Anakin
time
or not.
Yeah.
After Order 66. Even if Anakin himself didn't participate, he's working for the guy who did.
Yeah.
So if it's like, if Padme doesn't side with Anakin, and so Luke and Leia still go off on their own, I'm wondering if Luke would instead, Because obviously, calling him Luke Skywalker when there's this big enforcer of the Empire known as Master Skywalker. I mean, I figured.
I mean, he goes by Skywalker in the main continuity, and
Yeah, but
it's
at least
just
then he
accepted
wouldn't
that-
know. I mean, in this case, if he's
No,
Luke Skywalker and there's, Master Skywalker, Luke is going to know there's a relation then. I think he should be Luke Lars.
Sure. I mean, like that is what that's the again a thing that sort of was done in Kenobi of like, isn't it like a little silly that like how did Vader never find out about this?
Yeah.
Right? Like they're using his name on his home planet. It's like, well, he really fucking hates Sam.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, I think Luke Lars and I do think
On the other hand, Luke Lars sounds awful.
Yeah. I kind of also like what there's also what Darth and Droids did. He could be Luke Amidala.
Yeah, I mean the it depends on again sort of like are they being I think
For that matter, if he's gonna be Luke Amidala, what if instead of Tatooine they took him to Naboo? I think that definitely falls under hear me out.
I don't know. I mean, again, I think
Uncle Jar Jar.
it would have like it would have been nice to somehow redeem Jar Jar. Honestly,
Yeah. Imagine
you could have him actually be like a good character.
Yeah. No.
It's just like he had a bad first showing, right? But
Yeah.
instead, no.
Imagine a Luke raised in Oto Gunga.
Okay, hear me out. What if in this continuity we also stick with the original plan for Jar Jar?
What? That he's a Sith Lord.
Yeah, he's entirely the idiot persona is entirely like an obfuscation. He's actually this mastermind system.
Then he could be the main antagonist of our episode 4. Is actually Jar Jar.
Yeah. I mean,
Like
again,
Jar Jar
like,
comes along to the Jar Jar like starts feeding Luke information with like the Death Star and stuff, and then
no, I mean, I actually think again, like
then
it's a shame,
betrays
like
him.
it's so hard to sort of like take that seriously given what we actually got. But I do feel like, in theory, that could be a very compelling story. That could be well done, right?
Yeah. He's trying to turn Luke to the dark side. We will have a Skywalker one way or another.
I mean, the actual like speaking of like last name stuff, like it is really, isn't it a little weird that Han and Leia, like, why is Ben's last name Solo and not Organa? Like, Solo is literally like something that a stormtrooper wrote on a form because Han didn't have a last name and he showed up alone. And Organa is like a, actually,
Noble family.
yeah, like that's
Dates back to the
that's
old
a little
Republic.
weird. And
It dates back to the old Republic.
It dates back to the old Republic and would be a way of, keeping alive something from Alderaan.
Right.
Fucking up. So that is one of those, like, I don't know, like,
Do you think in that
The
case
art-
Han would become Han Organa?
I mean, again, like, the thing is, when that was established, right, Solo hadn't been written.
That's true.
So the exact details of how that name came to be.
But now
weren't
that we have
clear.
those details,
But even without those details, it's a little it's hard to imagine how it would be Organa for which name to go with, right?
Yeah. Also, I just kind of like the idea of Han Solo, who in the couple movies is portrayed as this womanizer, kind of a sleazeball, jerk with a heart of gold. Just something about the idea of him taking his wife's name.
No, I think that's like, I mean, if nothing else, there's like a very sort of pragmatic, rogue reason for doing that, which is the privilege that comes along with the name.
That too.
Right?
Like, hey,
Like,
don't you know
that's-
who I am? I'm an Organa.
Yeah, like that seems like that actually would make a lot of sense. I don't know. I mean, again, a kind of interesting thing to think about is if we take the Star Wars films as
I saw it just
Films-
pop up.
Normal dog is getting. Oh.
Normal dog.
Why do I feel like it's probably not a normal dog?
It's not a normal dog.
But like, I feel like you know, if we take the Star Wars films as being films about these historical events, as opposed to literally what we would see if we took a telescope and looked, light years away at a galaxy far away, and this is exactly how it happened. It's entirely possible, like, yes, that was a creative decision of the filmmakers to use that name. And it's like how in real historical stuff, you'll have people going by, like, their full name when it's like, well, actually, if you look at diaries from that time, everyone called them this nickname, right? Like, that's just like one of those things, like continuity things. It's like, maybe the true historical child of Han Solo and Leia Organa did go by Organa, but the people making the like if you accept sort of like the Doyle, this is a true story, but we are creating a fiction to tell it. You can sort of like make a lot of the problems go away.
What do you think Jar Jar's Darth title would be?
Oh, I feel like there actually was one that would, like, when it came out that this was a plan, there was some name, but I can't remember. I don't know. Find something that you could take in from the beginning of. Darth Ebriated. Right? Because it's the drunken master style of fighting, right? So
I was thinking something relating to, like, the oceans. Something.
I mean, like, given, like, once they broke out of the pattern of using taking in off the front of a word,
Yeah.
I feel like, Darth, like, even just, like, literally Darth Oceanus is, like, fine, right? Darth, again,
shout outs to Darth Droid with Yoda being Darth Sane.
yeah.
As in insane, because he went mad on what's the planet called? I knew this a minute ago, but forgot it. Swamp Planet Dagobah.
Yeah.
Searching for water-related words, let's start with in.
I mean, again, going away from that, just as a Sith name, I think Darth Kethis sounds very good. Kethis is a ancient Greek ocean goddess, actually, but just like as a word for like ocean, right? Like,
Oh, that's fun.
I think that has a good.
Yeah, I like that. Darth Kethis. I figured that Darth Kethis would have like the same sort of like lots of flips combat style that Yoda does. Just because I think that would contrast really well with his supposed clumsiness. It's like, oh, he's actually super agile. Plus, also, just in a Lego Star Wars game, my brain associates Jar Jar with double jumps. No, it's not double jumps, it's like, no, it was double jumps. I couldn't remember if it was double jumps or high jumps. But it was like, no, it was the Grievous's bodyguard that had high jumps, and Jar Jar had a double jump. Obviously, this is an important detail to keep straight.
Yeah, in 2019, when questioned about it, Best stated that only Lucas could answer, but he confirmed the theorist's ideas of Jar Jar's antics being actually a disguised fighting style akin to drunken boxing, revealing he based his performance on Jackie Chan's role in the 1978 film Drunken Master.
Huh. Neat. I did a quick Google, and someone theorized that Jar Jar's Sith name was actually supposed to be Dooku, and that stuff
I
got changed
mean,
around.
that's feasible, honestly.
Oh no, Azawuk's Zoxa is getting pretty old.
Hmm.
Goggle. Yee.
Anyway, the other reason I suggested the whole thing with the Gungans is I just think Oto Gunga would be cool, and also be cool to see a Luke with Gungan aesthetics.
Hmm. I mean, there's definitely like just the fact that the Gungans as a whole basically don't ever get used for the crimes of Jar Jar is like a shame because it is like their technology definitely has a very cool.
Yeah, and there's like, if you ever played Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds, which was basically Age of Empires, but Star Wars, one of the playable factions was Gungans.
Yeah.
And I'm just imagining, like, Luke really taking the water, and so, like, if he ever goes to Dagobah to visit Yoda still, like, he could just be swimming around in the swamps. Alright, we have our 400 grapes. Let me get the
I mean, the other
quality ones out of here.
like, I think it would be what if through some shenanigans, Jar Jar Binks with Darth Plagueis. Having faked his death and now pretending to be a Gungan conspiring to take revenge on his pupil Darth Sidious for trying to.
Absolutely
Like, I don't know,
astounding.
like-
I think that's probably a bit off of the initial concept of Anakin
Yeah.
getting a little caught in the weeds of AU.
I was just trying to think. I was trying to think like, again, just like if we're like trying to like. I was more sort of on the subject of like how, like what changed narratively from the original plans with Jar Jar, and like how could like if like it would be interesting if it was there was an established, like you said, like like Count Dooku is Count Dooku's actual name, right? His Sith name was Darth Tyrannus.
Yeah.
But like if there was some Darth that like we knew existed in the world, but we never saw, that it could have turned out to be.
Darth Lucas.
That seems like
Are you kidding me? I make one batch. Okay.
you know how it is.
Fine. I guess it's done one way or another.
Yeah,
I can,
such is life.
I can finally stop making nectar.
Plants when it's winter time.
Is this grape juice too? Drums.
Oh, a kitty has arrived.
Arcana,
Mhm.
does she still enjoy the hobby of looking at you?
Yeah.
I remember I saw a thread on Reddit the other day is, what's something that you often find yourself saying to your cat?
You are a kitty.
Yeah, that was up there with the XKCD.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's very
You're
true.
a kitty. I think one with me and my dad for Boots was, oh, it's such a tough job being a cat. Usually in moments where he was clearly very comfortable.
And go to with Arcana is, hey Arcana, how are you? You're the best at what you do, and what you do is be a cat.
She's an animal that lives in your house.
You're a kitty and a cat at the same time. Yeah,
Whoa.
that's really impressive.
Sir, are you aware that you are a cat? Alright, well, with the friggin' nectar stuff done, I can just focus on the instruments now, so that's nice.
Yep.
I can cross it off my list as well, from free to do to complete.
Yay.
Yay! Norbert will wake up, have some juice, and then play the drums all day. As one does.
I feel like that probably was the daily routine for a
Somebody.
considerable number of people in like the 70s.
Oh boy, 4 a.m. time for drums. Make eye contact with the robot card dealer.
We'll see who clicks first.
Norbert's like not blinking for hours on end. Like, from this camera angle, you can't prove he's blinking.
I mean, I also don't know if the robot has the capacity to blink.
But that's why Norbert has to hold it for hours. Why do you feel the need to do that, Norvis? Time to save. Seems like today's a slow day in the community, but that's okay.
Yeah.
To be honest, this stream is pretty repetitive, so it's not like there's much for them to see, so I wouldn't be surprised if people, like, watched for a bit and then ducked out.
Yeah.
We are we are doing the same, basically the same skill 4 times in a row.
Well, I mean, I think, again, theoretically, the draw would presumably then be the conversation or whatever.
Yeah.
But I actually am feeling not sick, but kind of weird, and I'm not sure what it is, so I maybe should actually call it and...
And you have a thing in an hour anyway, right?
Yeah. I think I'll probably go. It was good hanging out.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I'm helping to carry the stream.
Yep. Alright. Well, see you later.
Bye-bye. Alright, just me now. So it is possible that the stream may not go too much longer. Let's see, maybe once I max drums and then next time we can do bass. Just because I don't know how much I'm gonna have to say. I mean, Norvis is not doing a lot right now aside from just playing instruments. Norvis shall become a sleepy boy. Then he'll wake up and play the drums some more. Oh, shoot. Oh boy, 3 AM, time to play the drums. In baked grass. Honestly, the acoustics in here must be terrible. Still not going. The high skill levels take so long. I mean, it makes sense, but I do wish there was a way to make it faster. It's just it's a good thing Norbus is immortal, you know? Why did it have to be 4 skills? At least it doesn't include the laser, rhythmicon, or violin. If you already have the violin, but... Oof. Learn the awesome song, then sleep, then have a juice, then back drums, I guess. Toby Fox radiation is getting pretty old.
Oh.
We may never see the full release of Deltarune. Who are these people? Robert's got a full 4 hours of sleep and he's ready to go. Robert, don't just leave it on the... Here we go. I'm keeping 1,000 ways to stew Brontosaurus because it's funny. And they got it from an event, so I can't easily get another copy. I can always get another copy of the Dragon Crystal, though. Robert's going ham in that cowbell. Crazy again. But that's fine. And there goes my action cue. Apparently, Novus would like to jam with, Poto. Novus, go back to bed. Good morning, Norbus. Good Norbus. Morbus? Morbius. We should be able to get level 10 in this in-game day. I hope. Kept reading it as fried rice. Like, yes, hello, my name is Fried Rice. I'm getting tired. Come on, Norbus, you're almost there. Nearly there. There's that cowbell. Any moment now. Right, Narvis, have a juice, have a sleep, and tomorrow we play in that base. But for now, I think this is where we're going to call the stream for today. Thank you to those who came, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.